draft picks. It appears the Browns will receive a first-rounder in 2027, a second-rounder in 2028, and a third-rounder in 2029. I gotta say that on the surface, I don't hate it for Cleveland. Anytime you trade a superstar like Myles Garrett, the public perception is going to be, I hate this trade, because why would you get rid of somebody that good? And in reality, you never appear to get everything you could have for that player, right? I remember in Kansas City when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill. Everybody's thinking first-rounders, Jalen Waddle. That's just what it was going to be for how good Tyreek Hill was. That wasn't the case. They got a bunch of picks. They turned those picks into Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis. I mean, they hit on a lot of the guys they got picks for from that Tyreek Hill trade. When it comes to the Browns, they got a 23-sack season. Defensive Player of the Year. He was a first-team All-Pro for the 6th time in his career. 23-sack season. Age 30, they gave him the big contract. The Browns went 5-12. So you can make the case here, okay, that Myles Garrett doesn't get the Browns any closer to contention. He would be making a lot of money, getting a ton of sacks, and the Browns would be winning anywhere from 5 to 7 games every single year. So I understand why they did this trade. I also understand why the Rams made this trade, because Jared Verse, I mean, he's a young, great defensive, not really a hybrid, but more of a defensive end for the Los Angeles Rams. He didn't have 23 sacks. He had 7.5 last year, but he grades out well on PFF. He's only 25 years old. As I said earlier, he was a Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie, or the Defensive Rookie of the Year, I should say. And they get a bunch of draft picks. This is what Cleveland needs to be doing. Right? Yes. Myles Garrett putting in a year like he did last year. They won 5 games. So you have to understand at that point, even at his peak, at his best, you're not going to be a playoff team nor a Super Bowl contender. The Rams, on the other hand, they're going, we've never cared about first-round picks. And now maybe, Kurtis, there's more clarity why they took Ty Simpson where they did in the first round. Because they had the belief they could land someone like Myles Garrett, might as well get your quarterback to replace Matt Stafford. Why you got a first-round pick right now, but put the chips in, go all in, and say, we were in the NFC Championship game last year. We want to assemble one of the most lethal defenses in the NFL. They got Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. They signed Jalen Watson, so you know that secondary is going to be shored up. And then you add a game wrecker like this. And there is just nobody in the NFL comparable to Myles Garrett. It will hurt Cleveland's defense now, not having him. But you're hoping that Verse, a young player, multiple years of control, still on a rookie contract, and multiple picks, including a first-rounder, that can begin to reshape your team. That's what always bugs me in the NFL about teams that are nowhere close to contention, but they continue to pay guys to keep the fan base happy. And I'm not even sure a bunch of Browns fans were that happy about giving Myles Garrett that type of money, because you're going, they still can't score. It doesn't matter if we hold teams to 24 points. We can't score more than 10. I believe they were the worst offense in the NFL last year. So this makes sense for Cleveland. But it also is one hell of a deal for LA. I don't know how they afford it. They always make these moves, and I go, where is this money coming from?
Because their team is filled with 4th and 5th round draft picks.
Yeah, but just paying guys on rookie deals, but then a few spots you are spending a lot of money on them.
And that's where you spend money on pressure.
The Rams are great at doing this, because we thought when the Matt Stafford deal happened, and there's one more that I'm forgetting where they really put the chips in, gave up a ton of first-round picks. I don't know why I'm blanking on who it was, but
was it Jalen Ramsey?
It might have been Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Kyle's telling me. I would say
heading into that 2021 season.
Yeah, and at the time, everybody's saying, I don't know why you'd give up that many first-rounders. And Jalen Ramsey was great, but I also remember at that time back in 2020, 2020, like he was the cornerback.
Yeah.
The cornerback in the NFL.
They won a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah, they won a Super Bowl the first year Matt Stafford was in L.A., and he's coming off of a phenomenal year, but how much longer are you going to have Matt Stafford? Mm-hmm. This, to me, was, let's see if we can get over the hump one more time. Give Matt Stafford another shot at a Super Bowl. And then after that, maybe Stafford returns, but maybe it's Ty Simpson next year. And not a bad gig to walk into when you have Sean McVay, you've got the offensive help that they do, and you've got a couple of all-pros on the defensive side. Much easier than rookie quarterback taking over a team that went 2-15 a year ago, and you're trying to make it work. So this really does make sense on both sides. We always like to do this game of we want to find the loser. Who fleeced who? And this is one of those deals where I'd say Myles Garrett could have been on the table for multiple teams. I don't know if that was the case, but they're not going to be able to go to L.A. and say, give us 3 first-rounders, give us your 2 top players that are on rookie deals or just cheaper than the usual guys out there. And there's a chance the Rams could have said, no, we're not doing that. We're not ripping apart our team to get one player. So the Rams had to give up some valuable pieces, a great member of their defense, multiple draft picks, and the Browns probably feel satisfied with what they got there. I mean, you get to replace Myles Garrett with a guy that was widely known as a great young player on a damn good team last year. You weren't going to get the best of the best for Myles Garrett because you also have to factor in the contract here. It's a very, very expensive contract that Myles Garrett is dealing with right now. And the Browns are one of those teams that understands where they are. They haven't always. They've kind of done this limbo before of when they went out and signed Deshaun Watson. They believed Baker Mayfield was no longer the answer. Move on. We're in this window of contention. We were right there with the Chiefs in the COVID year. We were in the AFC divisional game. We can win now. They were wrong, and it set them back quite a bit. And now you have to adjust and go, let's get younger, let's get cheaper, and see if we can build this thing from the ground up. There's so many poor teams in the NFL that don't want to acknowledge this because of how the fan base will perceive them. Oh, we're punting on this year. But really, I ask both of you, they don't make this trade, and Myles Garrett is on that defense next year. Do you see them winning more than 7 games?
No. No.
I don't know how you could.
Not at all.
They're still not sure about their quarterback situation. You've got the albatross that is Deshaun Watson in his contract, but he's been so bad, it's just like, can you even play the guy? But then the other options are Dylan Gabriel, an undersized quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders.
I think
I actually really like this trade for the Browns. This is one of those trades that it sometimes hurts because you mentioned fan sentiment, although it's the Browns fan sentiment.
It's always going to be negative.
Already down, so how much worse could it possibly be?
It's only going to come back to hurt you.
But we began discussing this particular dynamic when the Royals traded for James Shields and lost Will Myers, who seemed like it was on his track for to be a great player, that you have to make a trade that hurts. And it was Jim Bowden, former Reds GM, who does a lot of stuff for ESPN, that we had him on, and that was the term he used. Teams have to make trades that hurt to get better, and it's true sport to sport. And this is a trade that hurts the Browns immediately, but it didn't hurt them as much because they got a guy back in Verse who can be an impact player, and 3 picks in rounds in which you get starters from primarily. And the fact that one of them's 28 and one of them's 29 doesn't matter, because this is a team that's not building for this year, and those picks are just as valuable to me as if they were all this year. And now they'll come up for in different years for free agency as well and new contracts, so that works out well for them. And they're going to be able to rebuild this team with good players and be ready to go at a time when Myles Garrett's not going to be probably a very productive player for the Rams. So not all teams, when you make a trade, as you mentioned, looking for the team that lost, the Rams and Browns could not have more different views on what this season holds. And I think the trade works out very well for the Rams. It has a better chance to work out better for the Browns because of the success of this trade will be measured out over a number of years. But the Rams are looking to win right now. They're set to go. What can we do to make this team, put this team over the top? I can't imagine they wouldn't be the favorite, even though the Seahawks
They
are
have to
defending
be, yeah.
champions. They're probably the number one team favorite for winning the Super Bowl this year. And if that happens and the Browns become a playoff team for 4 or 5 straight years because of their ability to rebuild, it's a fantastic trade for both teams.
And Verse is very versatile himself.
Yes.
I mean, he's listed as an outside linebacker, but he's second on the team in sacks last year for a really good Rams
and
team.
he didn't pile up the numbers, but you watch them play, and you're like, oh,
That guy stands
that guy
out.
flashes. Just as he did when he was at Florida State, you're like, that's an impact player. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year, only having 4.5 sacks, but you could see it coming. And then last year, he just got even better. So I think this is a very good trade for the Browns to have made. We don't know how much impact. We know what the impact is going to be for the Rams because Myles Garrett's established.
Yeah.
But it stands to be a very, very good trade for the Browns, and one, if they want to be competitive in the long term, is one they probably had to make.
Well, it's different to me if Myles Garrett wasn't 30 with the contract and he wasn't coming off of the year that he had. I mean, that's just where you can measure this. If you're a member of the Browns front office and go, we arguably got the best year you could ever have from Myles Garrett. As great as he's been throughout his career. I mean, he's been on some awful Browns teams, and he still produces. 23 sacks. Defensive Player of the Year for the second time in his career.
Yep, second time in 3 years.
And you won 5 games. So that tells you all you need to know. The likelihood of him doing that again, I would say slim. Right? It's hard to get 23 sacks in a season, let's be honest here. He can still be fantastic getting 15 sacks this year, but you make that gamble as a bad football team.
Yeah.
And let's say Myles Garrett does have 23 sacks. It helps the Rams a hell of a lot more than it ever could the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, because it just happened, and it didn't really amount to anything. By the way, I checked this offensively and defensively. The Defensive Player of the Year was first given out in 1971. Alan Page of the Vikings won it. The first one in the AFC, or the Offensive Player of the Year, for some reason wasn't until 72. And in those years, more than 100 years of awards combined, he's the only winner of that award to be traded in the off-season following the year in which he won it. Eric Dickerson was traded during the season after which he won Offensive Player of the Year in '86. But Garrett is the first player, the first AP Defensive or Offensive Player of the Year to be traded in the offseason after winning the award. He's the fifth Defensive Player of the Year to be traded by the team for which he won. But the first time it's ever happened in the offseason where a guy who just won Player of the Year was dealt.
Selfishly, I love this deal for the NFL, like as a fan of football, because seeing Myles Garrett, as good as he is, just waste away in Cleveland for years, like it's good news for Chiefs fans that you wouldn't have to worry about him. Really, I know the Rams and Chiefs play in LA this year.
I like that he went to the NFC.
Yep, he went to the NFC, so you won't have to run into them. Yes, or Buffalo or something like that.
The Chiefs will see the Rams this year, though.
Yes, in LA, but
they won't see him. If they see him twice, it'll be in the Super Bowl. And they won't see him again for another 3. If they don't, after this year, it's unlikely they'll see him again.
Absolutely. And I would say that for the Rams, you look at where they could jump, because Cleveland last year, they were 31st in scoring. So we know the issue in Cleveland. They can't score. They averaged less than 17 points a game last year. Defensively, and I would go as far to say it's only because of Myles Garrett, they were 14th in scoring defense. They were giving up about 22.3 points a game. So you are going to drop back quite a bit. But for the Rams, why I love this, they were number 1 in scoring last year. They averaged 30.5 points a game. They were 10th defensively. This now allows you to climb into the top 10 in both categories. I mean, you swap Jared Verse and picks for Myles Garrett. You go from 7.5 sacks to 23. Now, I'm not trying to be contradicting. I'm not contradicting what I said earlier of it's unlikely that he has 23 sacks again, but I'm sure you could lock in that he has 15 sacks at minimum next year. And you add that to a defense that had one double-digit sack guy. It goes without saying the Rams, who were 12-5 last year, they are going to be the heavy favorite to win the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of pressure to being that automatic, heavy preseason favorite. The Chiefs know all about it, where the target is immediately on your back. Seattle's not thrilled about the Rams getting a guy like Myles Garrett.
Near the 49ers.
But how many times do we see a reigning Super Bowl champion come into the year and they're not even the favorite in their division? Not many times.
Not too often. And I haven't seen the numbers of late, but I would imagine that's probably going to be the case. By the way, I was looking at the Browns roster last year. They had last year's AP Defensive Rookie of the Year, Carson Schwessinger, linebacker. So with this trade, they will now trot out this coming season with the last 2 AP Defensive Rookies of the Year on their front 7. So little better situation for the Browns defense going forward. 2 young guys who are can be hugely impactful for their teams. And you're going to maybe see this is allows them, and the draft picks that they got allows them to stack more on that side if they want. Or to go out and get and the Rams for the first round pick this year probably is not going to be a high one, but it's going to be a first round pick, and I think they have a chance to kind of rebuild that team over the next 3 years. By the way, this does continue the blank them picks.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, there's no team in the NFL that cares less about their first-round picks. And here's why. They go, we're going to be really good. Yeah. So we don't care about the 29th and 30th pick.
And we can flood the market. We can flood it with 4th and 5th round picks. They've been awesome in middle rounds, particularly getting offensive players. They know they've got a coaching staff set up. And so they're ready to rock in that situation. So this is... I'm going to use the word fascinating, but it's the trade of the year. It's one of the most impactful
no doubt
trades in the history of the league.
The Rams are doing for Stafford what New England didn't care to do for Tom Brady at the very end in Foxborough.
No.
Like, Matt Stafford's coming off of a 4,700-yard season, 46 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. Right? We know how good he was. He won the MVP. But you don't go into the next year after you fall short at the Super Bowl and go, well, do it again.
Yeah.
If you did it last year, do it again. No, it's let's make sure that when you put up, give or take 30 points a game, we're going to give you a defense that holds most opponents under 20 and just have a relentless pass rush.
Yeah.
And on Cleveland's side, if you're a Browns fan today saying, I hate this trade, really, you got 1 first-rounder, a 2nd-rounder the year after that, and a 3rd-rounder the year after that, and only Jared Verse, a guy who had 7.5 sacks? Well, look, you couldn't go to L.A. in the window that they're in, which this might be the final year of that window, depending what Matt Stafford does, because I'm sure their expectations drastically change when ththey're going to go from Stafford to Ty Simpson. They could not go to L.A. and say, we'll take a first-rounder, Jared Verse, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and that's what Myles Garrett is. Guess what? You wouldn't get anywhere on that deal. They'd say, thank you very much. We now know the price. We'll move on from that. And we see so many bad teams. I was trying to get at this earlier. We see so many bad teams overvalue even their superstars. Nobody's denying that Myles Garrett's a great player. But there's a lot of teams that are nowhere close to contention that hold on to them because they keep asking for the moon. And then eventually, that player gets hurt. That player's no longer as valuable, and you miss that prime opportunity to deal them. And Cleveland, more often than not, made that mistake of, we don't want to admit to the fan base that we're punting on the season. But you're 5-12 with the 2nd worst offense in the league, and a Herculean, and he looks like Hercules himself, a Herculean season for Myles Garrett didn't get you anywhere close. Nowhere close. This is about reshaping your defense, getting younger, getting cheaper, and then maybe 2 years down the road, you look back and go, hey, maybe the Rams got a Super Bowl out of it, but you weren't getting a Super Bowl out of Myles Garrett.
No.
Like, I think every Browns fan could say it. They were never getting a Super Bowl out of Myles Garrett. Therefore, you make the deal. LA's going, Jared Verse is great, but we got Myles Garrett, and we might be able to hit on a, as you said, a 3rd-rounder or a 4th-rounder in the next couple years, and then there you go. You got another great linebacker, another great edge rusher, and you're not worried about, what Myles Garrett is costing you at that point.
And I'm sure there are some Browns fans out there that are mad because they can't, they've all bought their Myles Garrett jerseys and they can't wear them to the games anymore. Well,
still,
you know what? You can just hang it in your closet at home, and go buy a Jared Verse jersey and wear that this year. And you have a lot better chance of wearing your jersey in a playoff game now than you did before. So what do you want? Do you want to wear your jersey to you bought for this great player to a game, or do you want to play in the playoffs? Do you want to watch playoff games in Cleveland? I want to watch playoff games in the city where I live. So whatever makes my team better and increases those odds, I'm all for it. So wear your Myles Garrett jersey all year, and then wear it in the playoffs when they, in 3 years when they get there. It's we didn't invent the phrase, maybe we did. You root for the name on the front, not the name on the back. And if it makes your team better, it's a good move for your team. Just because you lost your favorite player doesn't matter.
And I wonder why more teams in the AFC, when chasing the Chiefs, have not done something like this. Now, it's different because I'm not sure Baltimore could go to Cleveland and say, what's the asking price on Myles Garrett? They'd say, thank you very much, but we're not trading this guy in the North. We're not doing that.
Yeah,
But,
and not many teams have a
the
player
space,
who's have a player who's that good, but have almost no hope of winning. I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's unique, but it's a very rare situation to have a player
Not quite an
as
anomaly,
impactful
but
as Myles Garrett, but knowing you going into a season with the best defensive player in the world and going, we're not going to the playoffs.
Look at last year at the trade deadline. You saw Indianapolis give up a ton of picks for Sauce Gardner, who it didn't really work out in the end, but I can appreciate teams going for it a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you have Buffalo, right, who never got over that hump, at least haven't yet, but couldn't get over that hump, not one offseason they said, leave no doubt. We are going to go into the season with the best roster. And there were years they still had, on some projections, the best roster in the NFL. But almost getting that extra piece where you say, we're going to make sure we're on everybody's list as the number one team.
When you looked around at that roster and thought, who's the one guy who can kill you? It was still only ever Josh Allen. There was nobody else on that roster you thought could do that.
They brought in DJ Moore, but frankly, it's not enough to scare anybody right now.
No, and that's why also you can appreciate what Kansas City has done, winning multiple Super Bowls, because it's not always about we're giving up everything to go all in. They had to round out their team a bit more so that they could go and pay some of these guys to stick around. I mean, there were a couple years where the Jalen Ramsey, to bring him back up, those trade rumors of go out and get him. Leave no doubt in that secondary you've got your number one corner. But then we saw them hit on a bunch of young cornerbacks and guys you took in the 6th round, in the 4th round, in the 5th round that became number one cornerbacks, right? And L.A., they don't care to do that in the first round. It's like, let's just go get the best player at that position and roll the dice. And if I'm Matt Stafford, I might have been a bit ticked off they took Ty Simpson, but now I'm seeing the vision. Okay, that might be their only first rounder in a couple of years. Let's get him now, have him develop. But while you're still playing, you're going to have a top 5 offense and maybe even a top 5 defense. We'll take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk Kansas baseball with one of the beat reporters for the Jayhawks and Henry Greenstein. He's coming up on the program. Back here on the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I am your host, Jack Johnson, filling in for Seren Petro. He's back tomorrow. We still got the regular crew, though, in Kurtis Seaboldt and Kyle Collier. It's time to talk some positive baseball. Not much in the Kansas City Royals world. The Kansas Jayhawks, though, they are champions of the Lawrence Regional, and they will await the winner of the Oklahoma Sooners and Georgia Tech. A quick scoreboard update. The Sooners are up 3-0 on Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Oklahoma wins. They will come to Lawrence this weekend for the Supers. Georgia Tech comes back from down 3-0 and they win. The Jayhawks will head to Atlanta for the Super Regional. But to talk more Kansas baseball, we will chat with Henry Greenstein. We've had him on before talking KU basketball, but that season didn't end so well. This one still going for Dan Fitzgerald's bunch. Henry, first things first, how we doing this afternoon?
I'm doing just great. It is indeed still going, and who would have thought you could say that on June 1st? It's been an incredibly impressive run that I think has gone beyond what just about anyone could have anticipated, and the level of public interest in Kansas baseball has really grown both locally and nationally.
Well, we could see it all weekend long, whether it was the Northeastern game or Game 2 or Game 3 against Arkansas. The place was rocking. You had never seen Hoagland Ballpark like that before. For someone who was out there, describe to those listening what that atmosphere was like.
Yeah, it's a bunch of students kind of making it up as they go along, right? I mean, this isn't like a place that has a super established culture of baseball support, and it's been really interesting to see it spring up organically over the last 2 years. You know, I see tweets from Arkansas fans about how, you know, the KU fans were just kind of spamming emotes and random cheers, and it's like, well, what else are they supposed to do? You know, this isn't something where like KU fans at Allen Fieldhouse, there's a highly regimented series of things, and a lot of stuff has been built up over the course of generations of winning baseball. It's just people galvanized by a team that's had unprecedented success, and yeah, it was noisy. It was rowdy at times, maybe a bit too much in that Saturday night game at against Arkansas. But, you know, just an atmosphere that I would say was mostly characterized by genuine excitement surrounding something novel. And I was impressed in particular that they were able to continue to, you know, set attendance records considering class isn't in session. But they did a lot to expand the stadium, as has been discussed. You know, the backyard beyond the left field fence, which of course is now transparent, has been talked about probably too much at this point, but that was a nice touch. That gave it kind of a big-time vibe when you see they have other features like that at stadiums down south. They moved the visitors' bullpen and added standing room only options down the third baseline. So between those things, they got 4,042 fans Saturday and 4,007 on Sunday, and those don't sound like big numbers when, you know, you're used to SEC stadiums that seat like 11,000 or whatever. But by KU standards, that's immensely impressive. And they were rewarded with winning baseball, and who knows, if the Sooners pull this off, maybe there will be yet more records established next weekend, but long way to go in that one.
Talking some Kansas baseball with Henry Greenstein, sports editor of the LJ World and KU Sports. How important is it for a team like Kansas in the Big 12, where if you ask SEC fans, they'd say it's not a conference that scares us. Most of the time, SEC teams are going to bludgeon even Big 12 champions, but instead it's this Jayhawks team filled with a bunch of JUCO guys going up against, let's be honest, one of the more storied programs in the country, despite not having that signature national title. But they go up against them not once, but twice, and win those games. They were close. Game 2 was a little bit more stretched out than Game 1 was. But how important is it for the growth of this program to show up when all the lights are bright and to do so against an SEC team like Arkansas?
Yeah, the way last year ended, as strong of a season as last year was, returning to the tournament for the first time in 11 years and finishing second in the Big 12, kind of on a technicality, as strong as that was, they went 2-Q, as they say, in the Fayetteville Regional, lost both their games right away, and that could give fuel to anyone who was kind of doubting the validity of what Dan Fitzgerald and the staff have accomplished. So to not only come back after that with a team that was basically built from scratch. I mean, they have a few key returners. You think about Ballinger, Osoria, vaguely, and a couple of relievers like Manning West, who was great yesterday. But for the most part, a lineup that was constructed from scratch from under-recruited JUCO guys to come back and win a home regional really emphasizes that KU baseball is here to stay. And I think that's why you see KU trying to capitalize on this momentum and, in a sense, do something similar to what they did with the football program. You know, Travis Goff has said they're going to build an indoor practice facility. That's something that Fitz has described as crucial to the program, just kind of like a floor-raising measure in a way. If you have something like that, it'll lift up the quality of your program in the long term, sort of like what KU football is trying to do with the stadium, but maybe on kind of a smaller scale. I think KU, from a promotional and a fundraising standpoint, is doing a good job trying to harness this momentum to ensure that KU can continue to be a contender beyond this year. But, yeah, if we limit the scope to this season, absolutely a validation of the kind of unique recruiting approach that Fitz and John Coyne have taken. And I would be unsurprised if it spawns some imitators and KU maybe has to fight even harder for JUCO guys in the years ahead.
I know I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but I look to this weekend, whether it's Georgia Tech or Oklahoma. We know the Game 1 starter is going to be Dominic Bagley. We know Game 2 is going to be Mason Cook. But I'm curious your thoughts here with the way that Matthias Nayrol looked in the Game 3 showing against Arkansas. Would there be any chance, let's say it's 1-1, and it's win or go home to get to Omaha, could you see Dan Fitzgerald getting a bit more creative, using an opener, maybe Toby Scheidt, maybe Ryan Ritter, but you also acknowledge that you wouldn't have them later on in the game? Or is it, hey, he might have been a bit amped up against Arkansas in Game 2. It was hot, it was humid, tough to grip the ball. We're still going to go with the guy that gave us a ton of starts throughout the course of the regular season.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think they'd have to consider it because, Nayrol had a good line in the Big 12 tournament against West Virginia, but, man, he was bailed out by the defense a lot to get to that point. Earlier in the year, though, he did show he could be dominant in certain contexts. So it's a tough line to walk. But, yeah, if they get to that point, I wouldn't be surprised if they experiment. Ritter is a good call. They envision him as a future rotation guy next year. Cook and Ritter next year would be a great foundation for a weekend rotation. The problem is, I don't know. I just haven't seen a whole lot of experimentation. This is a team that's basically had, last season they basically had one lineup for the entire year. This season they changed the lineup once at midseason. It's essentially been the same since. I have a hard time from a practical perspective envisioning them starting out with anyone but Nayrol in a winner-take-all super regional game with Omaha on the line, just because he's built trust over the course of the year, and you don't know, if you start out with someone like Ritter or Cannon Carr, that's entirely unknown at that point, especially against a lineup as powerful as Georgia Tech. Now, what I could see Fitz doing, even if it is Nayrol, is using the same kind of quick hook he did last night, because that was new. He tends to give pitchers a little bit more runway than 1+ innings, and that ended up being one of the most pivotal decisions of the game. Now, Scheidt, who came in, wasn't great either, but the fact that he got Nayrol out of there prevented the game from spiraling completely out of control, in my opinion, and that's kind of why it was still within striking distance for KU to come back and surge ahead with that big 6 running. So all that is to say, I like the creativity. I like where your head's at. And I think Ritter and Carr could be good options if they do choose to do that. But ultimately, I have to expect it would still be Nayrol.
Well, it looked like yesterday after Arkansas jumped out 5-0, they, of course, had the offensive juice from Game 1 in the slugfest against Northeastern. You could tell how fired up the dugout was. They're chirping a little bit with the student section. What do you think the confidence level was amongst the team, the coaching staff, maybe even the fans that were there, that this Kansas team against that Arkansas team could erase a 5-run deficit in just one inning?
Well, the fans that were there, I think, had maybe lost some of that confidence. It had gotten quieter. It was a little quieter to begin with. I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but the student section certainly looked smaller over there on the third base line yesterday. But between that and the kind of intimidating fashion in which the game started out, they had lost some of the juice. And, as Fitz said post-game, they just need to do something to get the fans going. Well, I also think they just needed that one kind of play to get the offense going. And getting that play to begin with against a guy like Ethan McElvain was no guarantee with as well as he had pitched all season. He had a 1.03 ERA heading into last night's game. Ended up allowing 4 runs. He allowed 4 runs all season prior to that. And the reason why that happened was because of that solo shot by Dariel Osoria. Osoria has not had an incredible season. He was one of KU's top hitters last year, but really hasn't lived up that form. He started out the year playing second base, but kind of dropped out of the lineup altogether when he started slumping. Came back in as a DH, up and down. He's been capable of exploding for big games, though, and that's exactly what he did last night. And I really think that just kind of galvanized KU to show that McElvain was hittable. And it also helped at that point that McElvain crossed his season high in pitch count, and Arkansas didn't really have anywhere else they could go. And so they proceeded to string together those 4 straight singles and then 3-run homer by LeBlanc, who I think when you have LeBlanc on your sideline, that's enough confidence in and of itself. All year, what people like me were saying about KU was that it was such a well-balanced lineup, and it wasn't really the kind of thing where they had stars they were going to look to carry them, and someone like Jordan Bach or Dylan Schwaderback was just as likely to get a hit as someone like LeBlanc or Brady Ballinger or whatever. Well, LeBlanc has a home run in 5 of KU's 6 postseason games, and some of them were some of the biggest swings in program history, including that 3-run homer last night. He has proven that he should be a high draft pick in this summer's MLB draft. He has certainly made college programs across the country look silly for not recruiting him out of Eunice when the other schools on him besides KU were Western Kentucky, Coastal Carolina, and Louisiana Monroe. And I think as soon as KU serves in front with the low reserves of pitching that Arkansas had available in comparison, having played an extra game, from that point on, it really didn't feel like there was any chance KU was going to lose.
I want to talk a little bit about Bodie Ray and what he was able to do this weekend. I mean, I'm not sure you'll find anybody with more confidence in himself when he's out there in a close situation like it was on Saturday, or a 6-run cushion that he experienced when taking the ball yesterday evening. It's one thing, Henry, to go out there and pitch 3 days in a row, right? You go out there in the 9th inning, you get 3 outs, you move on to the next day, you do the same thing, and then do the same thing again on Sunday. This was 3 consecutive days of getting the ball, 2 of which were 6. Actually, I think all 3 of them were 6-out saves. To be that flexible, I know he had started some games early on in the year, but how valuable is that for a guy like Dan Fitzgerald? The bullpen can be hit and miss in college, but they've got a guy that when it's 3 outs to go, 6 outs to go, even we saw in Provo, 9 outs to go, you can turn to a guy like Bodie Ray on short rest.
Yeah, Fitz always says about Ray that he says he's ready to pitch every single day. And the thing, you want to have guys like that on your team who are willing to embrace the big moments. And Ray certainly has. You also have to know when to pull back on them a little bit. And there have been times this year where, maybe KU could have gone to Ray, but to tax him that much wouldn't have been wise. In this context, with a regional title on the line in the first ever Lawrence Regional, it always felt like they were going to give him a chance as much as they possibly could. And he was absolutely excellent the first 2 nights. Last night, he sort of just blew through it. I joked with someone he was pitching like he wanted the game to be over. Ends up giving up those 2 home runs, but did more than enough to seal it by the end. And yeah, he's got the mentality to take on the opponent's best hitters in the biggest moments. So many times this year where he came in and worked out of big jams. He didn't really have to do that in any of the games. And it also helped his cause that, in the first 2 games, he entered with a 1-run lead, and the team was his teammates were able to get insurance to make his life a little bit easier when it went to the 9th. But on the whole, the kind of character you want to have in a closer for sure, and Yeah, that was the first time in his college career he's pitched 3 straight days. You know, he was a starter part of the time he was at Kirkwood JUCO, and then he also started a couple games earlier this year when KU was trying to figure out what it was going to do with the rotation. So he can stretch out as needed, but 3 days in a row is kind of unprecedented. KU didn't do it with Hunter Cranton in 2024 or Alex Breckheimer in 2025 either, so it just shows the depth of trust that Dan Fitzgerald and Brandon Scott have in him to let him do that in such a big moment.
Talking with Henry Greenstein of the LJ World and KU Sports on the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Going into this weekend, Dan Fitzgerald said that Cade Baldridge is dealing with a bit of an upper body injury. Should he be all good to go for the Super Regional weekend, or is it more of a wait-and-see thing as we progress throughout this week?
Yeah, I mean, he also said that he could have played yesterday, Fitz did. So I don't think that's too much of a concern. We'll see how much they choose to rest him over the course of the week. You know, I imagine that it's kind of like regionals where there's an open practice day or whatever. But I don't think it's too much of a worry just because Baldridge apparently could have gone, and even after he didn't go, there was still some consideration that if it ended up being a really close game, they might have put him in the 7th, sort of like what they did with Ballinger in left field in the first game of the regional. So I would be surprised if Baldridge doesn't return for Super Regionals. That being said, you know, as good of a two-way player as he is, he's quietly like second on the team in batting average. He's not the biggest name, but he's consistent on that end, and that's why he hits high in the order. And also, as he showed in the first game against Arkansas, like a pretty agile player over at second base. But if they don't have him, like, Osoria has worked extensively in the field, and it's still a little weird to see him out there when he's been mostly a DH for the first 2 years of his time at KU. But he's capable, and the DH spot, I imagine, if they are without Baldridge for whatever reason, I imagine it's probably either Solis or Flowers according to pitching matchups. But ultimately, I would expect Baldridge to be back in his number 3 spot.
Yeah, I can't go unnoticed how good Osoria was yesterday. Really got the offense going. He was 4 for 5 and had to fill in for Baldridge at second base. Last question for you here, Henry. I'm going to paint a little hypothetical for you. Let's say Oklahoma is the one to advance to the Super Regional to take on KU in Lawrence. And let's say, to get way too ahead of ourselves, that Kansas beats Oklahoma in Lawrence to move to Omaha for the College World Series. Where would that rank among all programs in Lawrence of signature wins on campus? So you can include Allen Fieldhouse, you can include David Booth Memorial Stadium, and of course Hoagland, volleyball, softball, wherever you want to go with this. If they win this weekend against Oklahoma, for this hypothetical, assuming they're there, where would that rank all time for the university?
Well, the thing about it is, and I'd have to go back in the archives, like, in not many sports has KU had a chance to host games in Lawrence that are in the postseason, just because of the way that these formats often work. Like, it's not like, you know, women's basketball hasn't been a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament to host the first 2 rounds. Softball hasn't done that. So I think that it would have to be up near the top. I mean, I'm trying to think of, you know, if you're thinking about all-time big wins, obviously there are momentous ones you can think of in terms of so many conference titles won, so many big ranked matchups, even something as recent as beating Arizona during the last basketball season. There are a lot of contenders, but this is already one of the best seasons by a non-basketball program at KU, regardless of sport, going back well into the university's history. And, you know, it's a little bit hard to measure for things like track and field because individual accomplishments, how much does that necessarily compare to the overall team? And there are some seasons in which individual athletes excel, but doesn't necessarily equate to overall team success. But when you think about things like, you know, like the 2015 Kansas volleyball season and this are at least immediately coming to mind to me as the best non-KU men's basketball seasons for a group of Jayhawks. So without a doubt, if they are indeed able to host a Super and get Oklahoma here and pull that off to go to Omaha for just the second time in program history, that would have to be close to the top of the list.
Well, Henry, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to your coverage all weekend long.
All right. Thanks, guys.
There he goes. That's Henry Greenstein covering the Kansas Jayhawks, this unbelievable baseball run for the LJ World and KU Sports. We'll take a quick break, come back, and wrap up hour number 1 of the program. Wrapping up hour number 1 of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB, I am your host, Jack Johnson. Sren Petro, back tomorrow. To continue our college baseball talk, because we'll have Matt Derrick to open up hour number 2, talking more Chiefs football and the Myles Garrett trade with the Browns and the Rams. Oklahoma is up 3-0 in the top of the third. I know regionals can get weird.
Boy.
They're in Atlanta, but Georgia Tech is the road team. You have to have at least one game where you are the visitor, even if you're a host. But the Sooners up 3-0. Why that matters? If Oklahoma hangs on to win this elimination game, they will come to Lawrence next weekend for a best-of-3 series to go to the College World Series. Georgia Tech comes back. They had the number 1 offense in the country this year. The Jayhawks will go to Atlanta to take on the number 2 overall team in the tournament. Matt Derrick coming up next.
All right, who was the last AP Offensive Player of the Year to be traded by the team for which he won the award? Brought to you by Twin Peaks.
we begin hour number 2 of the program with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. And first things first here, Matt. Little bit of news coming out of the NFL earlier this morning. We called it earth-shattering. I'm sure you would share that sentiment. But Myles
Juju to the
Garrett,
Giants. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, Juju to the Giants and OBJ to the
What's something
Giants.
else?
And Braxton Berrios to the Giants. 3
Yes.
receivers.
They are.
All going to New York.
The 2018 Giants wide receiver room is loaded.
That is a loaded team. But in all seriousness, Myles Garrett heads to L.A. Pitts and Jared Verse head to Cleveland. Do you like this deal for both sides, or is there a clear-cut winner and loser when it comes to a deal like this?
No, I feel like the clear-cut winner is the Rams. I mean, Jared Verse, good player. Myles Garrett, a whole lot better player. So, I mean, the Rams' defense wasn't bad, and they've just done nothing weapons to that this offseason. I mean, it's pretty clear. They want to go after the Seahawks, and there's apparently nothing standing in their way of anything that they can do to accomplish that goal. We know that Les Snead, as has been discussed before, doesn't care about draft picks, and this trade once again proved that. So I think it's a great move for the Rams. I don't know what it means for the Browns because they're going to be terrible this year. They and the Dolphins, I mean, those two teams, do they play each other? Because if they do,
so.
I mean, that'll at least mean that they can't both go 0-17, but they might give it a run. But I just have no, confidence that the Browns will use those picks right. So they may just run this thing into the ground for a couple of years.
Yeah, but I get that, and I get the idea that the Rams are the winner. But because there's a winner in a trade doesn't necessarily mean that the other team is the loser. The team that usually gets the star in a trade like this is the team that gets the most, but they're in a position to get the most. And if you're Cleveland and you just had a 5-win season with the defensive player of the year, you can, if he comes back or if they keep him, what's the thought that they're going to be any better this year, even if he replicates what he did a year ago? And at some point, don't you have to start putting together something for the years to come? To me, it's the money that Myles Garrett was going to make in Cleveland is wasted on a team that's not really equipped elsewhere. And they may not make the best of these picks, but at least they have them to make. They have a first and a second and a third to help rebuild this team over the next 3 years to where in 2029 they're a better team than they would have been otherwise.
I mean, that's a theory. That's certainly one that the Browns are going to be working under, is that they're going to be able to get good players with those picks. But, I just have no faith in that because I mean, Myles Garrett was just basically handed to him on a silver platter. Unless the Browns end up just absolutely in the spot where they absolutely have to make the right pick because they're at a spot in the draft where it almost can't be avoided of picking the right player. Cleveland always seems to find a way to pick the wrong player. I just have no faith that with a late first and what did they get? Also a third? Is it a second?
They got a
third?
first, a second next year, and a third in 29.
Yeah,
and Jared Verse.
And I'm kind of reminded of a John Mulaney joke about acquiring a draft pick for 2029. Man, I feel like we're not even going to be drafting players in 2029. We'll be drinking moon juice with Jonathan Taylor Thomas rather than drafting players into the NFL. 2029 just seems forever away.
But that's kind of where both the Browns are in. I think. I don't think they're ready to win this year. But what do you think the alternative? If you're Cleveland, you don't make this trade and you sink or swim with Myles Garrett moving forward, or.
Oh, I mean, that's a funny thing to me, Curtis, is that, I mean, I have so little faith in Cleveland's ownership and organization. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to lose the trade no matter what because they're going to squander those resources. I mean, I don't think that, the Rams could have given them all their picks for the next 3 years and then even told them who to draft, and I still feel like the Browns would have probably found a way to blow it. I have no faith that the Browns will be able to parlay on top of these resources, and they may try and move some other players too. I mean, maybe pick up even more. Although I don't know who else that they have that they can move for more draft picks. But I just don't have a lot of faith that they're going to restock the cupboard, so to speak. And hey, I mean, let's face it. I mean, one of these teams is probably going to be picking in the top 5 of the draft in the next 5 years, and I definitely don't think it's going to be the Rams.
Matt, I know we were joking a little bit earlier about Juju Smith-Schuster signing with the Giants, but I don't know about you. I thought that there was going to be a reunion because the Chiefs love bringing back guys that have been with the team for a couple years. They know the playbook. And not to mention, Rashee Rice is in jail right now, and they don't have a lot of money to go out there and get some of the top available wide receivers. Are you surprised that they've kind of sat on their hands and just waited it out and probably might get somebody, may not, but that they've been not as active in trying to bring in a wide receiver in the news of Rashee Rice not being available for this team?
I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, on the one hand, I'm not surprised that they haven't made a move because they really don't have the resources to make much of a move. I mean, they even after they reworked the deal with George Karlaftis last week and moved some money around on his contract, they still don't have any salary cap room to maneuver. They will need to restructure another contract if they want to do that, and I'm not entirely convinced that they want to do that. I mean, the one thing that I thought was the holdup about potentially having a reunion with Juju was going to be that the Chiefs have pretty much shown this offseason that they are no longer running anything back. They did not bring essentially anybody back by and large. I mean, there's a handful of guys, young and expensive guys that they've brought back, but by and large, if you're a veteran, if you're older, if you are probably on the south side of your career, you're in a declining portion of your career, the Chiefs didn't want you back. I mean, they've let everybody go and everybody walk that's in those kind of scenarios, and that was their plan, going into this offseason, was that, barring anything, catastrophe happening, that they wanted to get younger and cheaper and more athletic, and they really didn't want to clog up any roster spots with guys who were veterans and, on the wrong side of 30. Juju was the one exception. I mean, he's still 29, although I think mileage-wise, you might say he's more like probably 32. He's just had been dinged up. The knees are not great. They know exactly what kind of shape that they're in. So, I mean, you thought that, hey, maybe the latest with Rashee Rice might prompt them to try a reunion with Juju because they know that he wouldn't require a lot of orientation coming in. He could pop back in pretty quickly. And honestly, I mean, we don't know for sure that's going to work out with the Giants. So he could be available again down the road. That has certainly happened before with Juju. So I'm not surprised, but I am a little bit surprised that the Chiefs haven't reacted in some way to the Rashee Rice news, of at least doing something. But I think it's part of their plan. I mean, I think that they definitely want. I think the one that they think they're going to have Rashee Rice, if he's healthy, for most of the season. They feel the same way about Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton, and they really like Cyrus Allen. I don't know that they're really super bullish on Jalen Royals, but they're going to give him a chance. And I think feel like they got a lot of other guys too that they can squeeze some juice out of. I'm not sure that they're going to be big players, but they feel like that. Hey, Chad O'Shea can get a little something out of these guys, and Patrick can maybe get a little something out of these guys. I'm not as confident, but the Chiefs seem to be pretty confident.
Were you surprised to hear Andy Reid call Rashee Rice's situation another, what did he call it, a life lesson or something along the lines of that? Because, I don't know, this guy has been given so many opportunities to clean up his act, stay out of trouble, and be the number one wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. But here we are yet again talking about his unavailability, and I thought it was even crazy to see on Twitter that last week when this team was speaking to the media, it was Rashee Rice not here because he's in jail. Not many times you're going to see that, if ever, at the NFL level. Is it more of it's a life lesson for him, we're going to keep him because we have no other choice, the wide receiver room isn't that strong? Or is it they actually believe this is the wake-up call and you're not going to have to worry about it moving forward?
Yeah, I'm not convinced that the Chiefs are naive enough to ever think that anything with Rashee is ever going to be the wake-up call. I mean, they know him by now. They know that He just goes around through life a little bit differently than everybody else does, and it's a complicated situation. I mean, there's you could tell it. Hey, the free 4 T-shirts were out there for a reason last year with this team. This team likes Rashee Rice. They get along with him. He's not a jerk. I mean, if he was a jerk, it'd be easy for these guys to just say cut him loose and not be supporting him. But he's their guy, and to a certain extent, he's the Chiefs guy too. And yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. There's obviously a few blemishes on that resume that, for some organizations, maybe that would have been the final straw. And here's the thing. I mean, if you have been with Rashee Rice through everything that he has gone through in his career to this point, I mean, a THC test is not going to be the final straw. I mean, you've gone through much worse with Rashee Rice than that. I mean, you knew he was going to be spending 30 days in jail anyway, so that almost is. I mean, it's beside the point at this point. You knew that was going to happen. You knew you didn't want it to necessarily be this way, but hey, they knew what they were getting in this year, and they have kind of, the die has been cast a little bit with Rashee. So, yeah, I think that they see it at this point is that, hey, this is an investment that they have made with him financially, development-wise, time-wise, roster spot-wise, you name it. They've been with the Rashee Rice experience, and they got one more year that they've paid for, and they want to get the best that they can. And, I mean, let's face it, any way you slice it up, film, numbers, stats, I mean, anything you want to point to, Rashee Rice is the best receiver on this team, and they're a better team with him. That's kind of the flat out. And I'm not saying it's the end-all, be-all, but I think that, that factored with the fact that they like Rashee Rice, that they think that they like the person who he is, that they don't necessarily like the decisions that he's made and the situations that he's put himself in, but they're not going to abandon him. And that's, it's been Andy Reid's tact for most of his career too. I mean, he has stuck with guys through thick and thin, and this is another one of those thin moments with Rashee Rice.
And maybe that's just the most frustrating thing, is that he is clear-cut the best receiver on this team, and it has to be infuriating to a guy like Patrick Mahomes because he doesn't have a lot to work with when it comes to that wide receiver room, because you've seen Rashee Rice at his best, and when he's available, when he's healthy, he can be that 1,000-yard type receiver that the Chiefs have not really had over the last couple of years. But let's walk into the future a little bit here and paint this scenario. If there is a situation where middle of the season, maybe late in the season, he gets in trouble again and he's not available, who does the blame fall at the feet of? Is that the front office and continuing to have him around? Is that Andy Reid giving him the confidence and giving him another shot? Or is it just, Matt, he's a big boy, he's an adult. If he gets in trouble again, there is nobody to blame but himself?
And I know it's going to sound like a cop-out answer, but to a degree, I think all three. I mean, Rashee has been given a ton of chances. This is another one of those chances. And if he messes this one up, I mean, he really, both legally and in the organization, he doesn't necessarily have a lot of room to fail again. I mean, violating his probation again, probably the next violation is going to be more than 30 days in jail. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty good chance of that. And if that's the case, it's probably going to be a worse football consequence, too. So, I mean, you're going to have to depend it on Rashee. But, I mean, to a certain degree, hey, you can trace the line all the way back to he made the decision to draft him. A lot of teams didn't have him on their draft board. The Chiefs did. And, hey, let's face it, they also had him on their draft board and were willing to take him in the second round because they needed wide receivers. They needed somebody of his talent. Hey, if you feel like the team has some responsibility for, one, drafting him, and then two, maybe not getting him the help that he needs. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. Did they give him the help and Rashee not take it and take advantage of it? Was it solely on the team? Is there something as far as the accountability in this team? I mean, that's something that I think only the Chiefs can really determine inside, and that's all. I mean, eventually that falls even on the shoulders of Clark Hunt. He's the one that needs to be like, hey, what was the process here with Rasheed? Why did you take him? Why did you stick with him? And hey, it's very possible that Clark has been co-signing this all along, and so maybe the buck stops with him. But I think it's a complicated answer because I think everybody owns a little bit of it, and eventually, hey, guys got to be responsible for themselves. And I'm a little surprised at this point, Jack, that that the peer pressure of the locker room hasn't been enough, because that there have been conversations in that locker room between his teammates, between the veterans, who have absolutely had to talk with Rasheed of, hey, you got to step up. You got to be responsible. You got to be accountable, and not just to yourself, but to your team.
Ever since Patrick Mahomes, in particular, when they began going to Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls, that's one of the things that was always kind of used with their considering going for or trying to attract someone who's had some off-the-field problems. That locker room with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and all those guys, the veterans, would be a place where someone who had a checkered past could enter and they'd be okay. And this is clearly, as you mentioned, a situation where it really hasn't. Do you think this has been a revelation to them, maybe in the future, if they have a guy they think they might want to go after that has some issues, that they won't use that as a reason to continue to pursue them? That was a haphazard question, but you got my point.
I definitely got your point, Curtis. And here's the crazy
I fumbled
thing.
my way. I kind of wandered my way to it. So
I think you made it. I think it was great. No, and I think it's a great point too. And here's the crazy thing about it is that this might be the best case scenario. I mean, there's an entirely possible, maybe there's another universe where Rasheed Rice goes to another team, and he gets into a lot more trouble than he got into in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's entirely possible that this is, like I said, that this is not the darkest timeline for Rasheed Rice. This might be, maybe it's the middle of the pack. This might be the best timeline. Who knows? That's what's been really hard for me. And like I, mentioning earlier about the fact that this organization, likes Rasheed Rice, his actions and the consequences of his action would make it really easy for people to dislike him. And people who don't know him, there's a lot of them who dislike him. I mean, I get a lot of Chiefs fans who have just said, hey, just cut bait, be done with him. They don't want him on this team anymore. And that's, I don't think, a vocal minority. I think it's a pretty large group of Chiefs fans that feel that way. But, this team hasn't felt all along because they see a different person than the public does with the 30,000-foot view. I mean, down at the ground level where they are with Rasheed, they see a different person. And I mean, and I get that. I mean, I have some people in my life that are probably like that too, that have done some things that you're not really happy with, and you like them as the person that they are, but you're just like, did you just not be a knucklehead and pull yourself together? And I do think that the Chiefs have leaned on the whole, this is a good locker room, you can drop some people in here and it's going to be okay. They've done that with a lot of guys, and I don't think. I mean, I know where this locker room was 8, 9, 10 years ago, and honestly, I don't think it's anywhere as it once was. As far as just guys could do their own things, and and there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of accountability, and that. Certain players, there were star rules, and some guys could do things, but other guys couldn't. There's probably still some elements of that, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as it was 10 years ago. But that doesn't mean that you can drop just anybody into an organization and they're going to walk the straight line. I mean, it's not going to work for everybody.
Just curious, you wanna give us any names on that list of people that not sure about?
I think that you could probably pull some pretty good guesses about guys who were polarizing in that locker room. That had
I thought you said there were some people that you knew, like in your away from the field. I'm like, you want to out anybody or
Hey, and you're maybe more worried about the reporters coming into the room than you are about what's happening on the field, that might be a pretty good sign.
That got more than I thought I was going to get.
Well, Matt, it's actually kind of history here that we have you on the phone lines while news is breaking. This is from Adam Schefter. The Eagles, although it's pretty expected, I'm sure this has been known for months, at least it seems that way around the NFL, but the Eagles are trading Pro Bowl wide receiver A.J. Brown to the Patriots for a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick, and looks like that is the better one of New England's 2 fifths that'll be going to Philadelphia. So how do you think this works out for both teams? I know we opened up this segment talking about Myles Garrett and Jared Verse, but New England, after losing Stephon Diggs to free agency, they add a guy like A.J. Brown. Is this a good fit, or are they overpaying for a guy that's past his prime?
I don't. That's a really good question because I don't know if A.J. Brown's past his prime. I think he might still be right in that prime. He's a really good player, but you look at it. I mean, that's less than what the Dolphins got back for Jalen Waddle, and I think A.J. Brown right now is a better player than Jalen Waddle is. So, at one point it was the Eagles said they were looking for supposedly a first and a second. So they don't get that. I'm not sure it's a huge win for the Eagles. Although I will say the part where I think this is a win for the Eagles in 2 ways. One, obviously, A.J. Brown had been a distraction. Whether it was him and Jalen Hurts not getting along, him and Nick Sirianni. I mean, clearly there were some egos at play, and somebody had to go. And the Eagles made pretty much their choice that Sirianni and Hurts were staying, so looked like it was going to have to be A.J. Brown that was going to have to go. Patriots are a fine fit, and honestly, there's only a handful of teams probably in the NFL that A.J. Brown could go to because he's obviously doesn't want to go to a loser. He wants his money. Sounds like he may want even more money, but that contract is a disaster. I mean, it was a contract that only the Eagles could give out. Because I mean, to a degree, I mean, they're the same thing like a joke earlier about drinking moon juice with Jonathan Taylor Thomas here in a few years. I mean, there's money in that contract for A.J. Brown into 2033. And, and it's not all guaranteed. You can get around some of it, although I believe there's some rolling guarantees in there that it kind of, becomes more and more down the road. But the way that they put those void years in there and structure them, I mean, it was a debacle. I mean, there's no way that the Chiefs would have wanted to touch that contract in a million years. And you can move things around, but again, sometimes if you want to move things around with the player, you got to grease the skids with more money. Patriots can handle it. They've got a lot of cap space, so they're going to be able to make it work. This is what they think is the piece that's obviously going to get them up a notch. I'm not sold on that as much. I think they're going to. I think they might be up for a regression just because I think they're going to lose too many pieces. And hey, things aren't going to go as well as they did last year. Even though I think Mike Vrabel's still a good coach, but I don't know if this year is going to be as easy for him, assuming he's still there. But I mean, I'm torn. I mean, like I said, I think it's a very good player, a player that the Patriots absolutely need. I don't think the Eagles got as much as they wanted, but I think that they are a bit of winners for just getting rid of that contract and obviously getting rid of the situation, although it's going to make them a worse team in the short run because he's their best receiver. So, I mean, Devontae Smith is good too, but A.J. Brown's really, really good. So they're not going to be the same offense without him.
I'm a little puzzled from the New England perspective. It makes more. I understand why the Rams are giving up high, first-round picks for Myles Garrett. They're ready to rock. And the Patriots were in the Super Bowl last year, but they have a third-year quarterback that they're trying to build around. And if I'm a Pats fan, I'm like, we're giving up a first-round pick for a problematic wide receiver that is not, his better years may in fact be behind him. Why are we giving up a first-round pick instead of trying to use that to build the team around a quarterback we think is going to be great? I think maybe the postseason last year, and particularly the Super Bowl, took a little bit of the bloom off the rose of, I almost said Mac Jones. Drake May. I'm a little and also we talked about locker rooms that you can absorb a guy with some problems. is the Patriots locker room this year going to be one of those locker rooms? I mean, the head coach, the guy who's the head of that locker room, is the one who's embroiled in some controversy off the field. I'm a little perplexed by that one. And this is going to make that Pats season even more interesting. The Patriot beat writers are like, oh boy, we're going to have no shortage of leads this year.
I'm curious about what did Schefter give credit to Diana Rossini for having it first?
Not that I know of. I don't think that's happened. That's. Yeah.
Well, Matt, I think that'll be all the trade news that we go over here today. And we appreciate your time as always hopping on. You have a good one.
Sounds great, Jack. Take care, guys.
See ya.
There he goes. That's Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Man, that's a fun 30 minutes that we just had there. But yeah, it's weird that A.J. Brown news felt like it was in the works for months.
Yeah,
like Patriots involved.
He would go, but I guess he reunited with Mike Vrabel together in Tennessee. Maybe Vrabel thinks he's the guy who can kind of corral him, but. Is Mike Vrabel really in a position to corral anybody? He's lost a little bit of cred in that area,
no doubt.
So that's,
was Nick Sirianni?
That's true.
No, I could see why he'd be going somewhere.
Vrabel's built quite a bit more,
wow.
So maybe he has more authority that way. Just being a former football player, a linebacker in the NFL. But you're exactly right, Kay. I'm not sure what the message in the locker room would be right now. But that was Matt Derrick. You missed any of it, you can check it out on the podcast page after the show. We'll take a quick break, come back. Unfortunately, it's time to talk some Royals. They did get a gift. They do not have to face Chase Burns tonight. He's been scratched with an illness, so you go from facing a guy who throws 102 and has a sub-2 ERA to a guy that has a double-digit ERA. It has a Bailey Falter ERA. And guess what? He probably found out he was going to start about 2 hours ago. You think he'll complain if the Royals rough him up tonight?
Another late-minute start?
Late-minute start that throws a ranch in the plan.
Yeah, or you don't want to throw ranches in plans. That's really particularly if it's the Dutton Ranch, because, Beth will just tear you up. They also won't have to face Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, he, like Michael Garcia, had a lower body injury that he suffered over the weekend, so the star player of the Cincinnati Reds will not be available. The star pitcher will not be available in tonight's game. Luinder Avila will throw for Kansas City. He'll probably be on a pitch count of 60 to 70. Yes.
They're still a significant dog because their guy is not their best.
No, it's not a regular starter for the Royals, but it's another opportunity to see how Avila, who they hold in a very high regard of being a frontline starter down the road, it's another chance to see him pitch in, let's be honest, a low-leverage situation. The Royals are 15 games under 500 on June 1st. They're not pitching for the division. They're just pitching to end a losing streak. We'll talk Royals baseball next.
All right, the Twin Peaks end of the hour answer. Who was the last AP Offensive Player of the Year to be traded by the team for which he won the award?
AP Offensive Player of the Year to be traded for.
To be traded after
he won the award.
No, to be traded by the team for whom he won the award, not like 2 or 3 stops down the line.
This recent?
No. There's a list of them. There are one.
I might have to pass on this one.
There are 7.
7 of them.
Yes.
Garrett now being one of them.
Yes.
I'm not sure I have an answer.
It was in 2008 when the Packers traded Brett Favre to the Jets.
Ooh.
In 2008. Before that, we had
You probably weren't thinking quarterback there, were you, Jack?
I wasn't.
the others, and it's confusing. I'm instead of going by draft, I'm going to go by the year that they won it. 1990, Warren Moon was traded to the Vikings in '94. 89, Joe Montana won it for the 49ers, was then traded to the Chiefs in '93. 86, Eric Dickerson won it for the Rams, was traded to the Colts the next year mid-season. 1980, Earl Campbell of Houston won his second consecutive. He was traded to the Saints in '84. Ken Stabler won it for Oakland in '74. He was traded to Houston in 1980. And the first one, 1973, O.J. Simpson of the Bills. Won it for the Bills in '73, his 2,000-yard season. Traded to the 49ers, his hometown team, in 1978. He was also with the Niners in '79, which means O.J. Simpson actually was, for one season, was on the same team as Joe Montana under Bill Walsh. I hadn't thought about that.
That's fascinating.
Joe Montana and O.J. Simpson were teammates
in San Francisco
for 1 year.
Also, the first one, as you brought up with Brett Favre, it seems like it's the Jets' curse because, and he still, I want to say that year was a Pro Bowler in New York, but he wasn't good. Like, it's such a forgettable time of his career. He was 9-7, had 22 touchdowns and 22 picks, which led the league. He then went to Minnesota, of course, went 12-4, had 33 touchdowns and 7 picks. And then it reminds you of Aaron Rodgers going from Green Bay to the Jets. First series, Achilles, done for the year. Never does much for the Jets, and then makes the playoffs with the Steelers.
It's
the curse.
To go to the defensive side, I mentioned Garrett being the 5th AP Defensive Player of the Year to be traded by the team for which he won the award. He's the first one to be traded immediately after that DPOY season. The other 4 that were traded, like 2019, Stephon Gilmore won it for the Pats. He was traded to Carolina in 21. 2016, Khalil Mack of Oakland was traded to the Bears in 2018. 1991, Pat Swilling of New Orleans was traded to the Lions in 1993. And 1989, Keith Millard of the Vikings was traded to Seattle in 1992. So there's the list. I put those all out on Twitter if anybody wants to go back and look at them. I'm kind of fascinated by those types of things. So we've seen 2 guys who were offensive or defensive player of the year be traded the following year. Dickerson in season, and now Myles Garrett before the season, the first ever to do that.
A lot of big names.
Yes.
A lot of big names on that list. I could have gotten one of them if I was thinking a bit harder. Switching over to baseball, though, and a quick update.
Do we have to?
We have to. We promised everybody at 2 o'clock this is the time we had reserved for the Royals.
And even in one of the teams for which there has been good news, we have bad news.
Yes. Yes, we do. But I do want to tell everybody that right now in Atlanta, for you Kansas baseball fans wondering what the score is, Oklahoma had led 3-0 after 1. Georgia Tech is now on top 4-3, the bottom of the 5th. If you're just tuning in, Oklahoma wins that game. They will travel to Lawrence next weekend for the Super Regionals, best of 3 to head to the College World Series. If Georgia Tech holds on to this 1-run lead, the Jayhawks will head to Atlanta for that best of 3 beginning on Friday. So we'll see what happens, and we will have a result before the end of the show. The Royals begin a 3-game series in Cincinnati to continue their 10-game road trip. They are 22-37. It will be Luinder Avila as the starter tonight, if you want to call him that. He's not quite an opener. He's not a bulk reliever. He's going to start and throw anywhere from 60 to 70 pitches, would be my guess. The Reds were going to counter with Chase Burns, who's been one of the most electric pitchers in the National League this year. He's a former top 5 pick. He throws 200 miles an hour, gets a ton of strikeouts, and he's just been electric, even for a hitter-friendly ballpark, a Great American Ballpark. He's been really good at home this year. Really been good everywhere he's pitched. But he won't go tonight. He's been scratched due to an illness. Instead, it'll be Lyon Richardson, who has only gotten 2 outs this year. Now, he's not been on the team that long, but it's a 13.50 ERA. Last year for Cincinnati appeared in 34 games, a 4.54 ERA. Here's something to note. He has not started since 2023.
And it's interesting to note that he has not started a game for 3 years.
And we can probably expect him to be on his game tonight.
He'll probably throw a 3-hitter.
If he goes that deep into the game.
Yes.
Here, and this is where, as a team that's slumping, you really have to capitalize on a gift that has just fallen into your laps. Number one, you're not facing Chase Burns. Number two, it's going to be a bullpen game in game 1 in a hitter-friendly ballpark.
Yes.
You have been given this opportunity.
Against a hitter-friendly staff in general.
Yes.
The one guy who you didn't want to face is gone. The Reds are one of the worst pitching teams in baseball.
Yeah.
Part of it's because of that ballpark, but
they're never going to
they're
be
not good on the road either.
No. They have really struggled this year to pitch, and in my opinion, if you don't find a way to get it done tonight, I get you've got Avila on the mound. He's not a Michael Wacha or a Seth Lugo or a Chris Bubich. He's not one of those guys. This is all about the offense tonight. And the lineup is out there. No Salvador Perez. It will be Carter Jensen leading off. Jack Caglione's going to be hitting cleanup. Lofton's at third because Michael Garcia, who's not on the injured list, he's just taking it easy for a couple of days, though I thought he was going to be out for a long time after that situation on
How
Saturday.
Royals was that?
I told somebody, I said,
How
that's
20
just so
I'm sorry,
fit.
how 2026 Royals?
Well,
was
I mean, outside of a couple of years, I mean, how royal
Yeah,
has
that's-
it been?
yeah.
I mean, it's not like they've been the
how,
pinnacle.
How non-2024 14 or 15 Royals was that?
Exactly. I mean, in an inning where they're storming back against the Rangers, Vinny Pasquantino, who struggled other way into the gap, and
To have 3 consecutive RBI hits by those 3 guys.
first pitch Hutton, too.
Yeah, when was the last time that Witt, Garcia, and Pasquantino had an RBI in the same inning?
I can't
or even
remember.
the same game.
Can't have been
To have
this
it
year.
back to back to back, you're like, I'll be damned. The big 3 just came up big and
Yeah. And
oh boy.
that's why I'm just floored that he wasn't immediately on the injured list. It's
Yes.
not like he did what Ellie De La Cruz did, which was round first and then kind of grimaces and hobbles a little bit, and then you pull him from the game. Garcia stepped on second base, immediately pulled up. He's hopping on one leg
Yeah.
and then collapses in a heap at third. And somehow, and and this is probably the lone positive we'll talk about, it wasn't immediate, yeah, he's on the 15-day IL. We probably will not see him for quite some time. They don't envision this being a nasty IL stint where it's just you're out for a month plus, then you're trying to work your way back into it. These are all these type of things that you're having to worry about.
Yeah.
But he's not in the lineup tonight.
Nope.
And we'll get to that probably more a little bit later on.
No word from anybody who covers the team on any discussions. The latest we've heard was yesterday from Andy Rogers.
He was supposed to be
saying that they were-
reevaluated today.
Yeah.
So maybe it will come out in
Maybe
the
they don't know it
pregame,
yet, but-
pre-clubhouse interviews
No.
before the Royals take on the Reds.
They'll have Matt Strahm back,
They do,
which is nice.
At this point, Kay, I might give him a couple of the closing opportunities. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. It does not matter who your closer is when you're 15 games under 500. We can't get into that. You are bad for a reason, and it's not because your closer can't get. It's part of the reason.
It also doesn't matter who your closer is if you don't have one.
Yes, and they don't.
If no one can get outs consistently in that situation.
The bullpen is an unbelievable disaster. There's not a single guy that walks out of the bullpen who's not Daniel Lynch that I go, Feel pretty good. And there's even been a couple outings where Daniel Lynch is a bit iffy, and you go, well, who the hell are they going to go to now?
Daniel Lynch is who everyone thought Lucas Ursay was going to be.
And it's
the guy who's the only one you can count on. Now you can't count on him. At least you've got Lynch, but he can't pitch every night. This isn't Stratomatic.
No. And that's the offense has had its fair share of issues. The rotation is not. I mean, they've had their bad stretch when all of a sudden the offense was catching fire, but they're second in the league in quality starts, and they still can't win games. Why? Because the offense is inconsistent.
Yes.
The bullpen can't hold on to those leads.
They're barely a 500 team when they have a quality start, and the league average is 700.
Can you believe there were people that used to complain about how Carlos Estevez got saves?
Yes.
Can you believe there was a time that we complained that he made it too uncomfortable for me when I'm watching the games?
Yeah.
It's a 3-run game, and he gives up a solo shot, and then a guy gets on first, but he gets out of it, and there's some hard contact. It's like, can we please put Ursig in the role? Because I don't like it when he makes it interesting.
Yeah. Well, I always said, I said last year that the 5 best pitchers in Royals history, if you listen to the fans, were, Kevin Appier, Brett Saberhagen, Lucas Ursig when he didn't pitch, then you had Dennis
Wade
Leonard.
Davis, yeah.
So but that obviously has gone away.
I mean, we would kill for 42 uncomfortable saves.
Oh yeah, exactly. Now part of it is they're rarely up 3 in the 9th.
Well,
but even when they have a nice lead, they had a nice lead the other day, and
had
Kakapupu in the 9th inning again.
All the momentum too.
Yes.
I mean, you replay that moment where Carter Jensen dives for a foul bunt, and he's getting up, he's screaming toward the dugout, he's pumping his fist. Annie Rogers had reported. I want to say multiple people had reported. I want to say Joe Goldberg did. It was that dugout got fired up.
Yeah.
It was like they knew in that moment. Your young second-year catcher lays out extra effort play, you get out of the inning. You give that exact play to every other team in baseball in Arlington against the Rangers in the 8th inning. Would you go as far to say that maybe other than the Tigers, because they're not playing much better right now, they win that game? Like, would you go as far to say that you get that moment where the Rangers go, man, they were right there to tie the game, and a catcher, which you just rarely see, lay out full extension and catch that, and they're fired up? How many teams not only lose that game, Curtis, they don't record an out in the 9th inning?
Yes.
How many? I mean,
many.
And this has always been a little bit of my issue with Lucas Ursig, and I do believe that he is a fine reliever. He's in a really bad stretch, but when he's going well, we've seen him look very effective. I mean, we're 2 years removed from him shutting down Game 1 and Game 2 in Baltimore of the Wild Card Series in front of a sold-out crowd at Camden Yards and just ice in his veins. I mean, just 98 on the black, change up with movement, slider down and in to left-handed hitters. We're not far removed from that. It's also why you need to trade relievers at peak value, because they always run into a wall like this, and then you don't have value anymore. It happened to Scott Barlow. It happened to Greg Holland. It happened to Wade Davis. It happened to Kelvin Herrera. Go across the board. Very few relievers are great from the time they debut to the time they retire. But my big issue with Lucas Ursig is what happened on Saturday. It's not that he blew the save. It's that he can't strike anybody out with the stuff he possesses.
Yes.
And great closers go in there. I'm not asking you to be Mason Miller. I'm not asking you to be Wade Davis. I'm asking you to just strike out maybe 30%, 35% of the hitters that you face. Strike out 10 guys per 9, the stat that the Ks per 9. Give me that. And you probably will be more successful than not, because the teams you are facing, what were the hits that you saw other than the solo shot by, I believe it was Josh Young in the 9th inning? Other than that, who squared up the ball? I didn't think really anybody. There might have been one I'm missing here, but the game-winning hit, the little ricochet that Ursig tried to field, all these little infield... This is not the first time that's happened. The only outing I can recall where Ursig went in there and it was, wow, that's dominant stuff. It was a Seattle series. Lo and behold, it was the only moment or only weekend of joy we've had of Royals baseball all year long, but he had the power stuff. He was getting the strikeouts. It was the extra innings, the ghost runner at second base. He was able to get out of it because he could get the swing and miss. If you can't get the swing and miss, you cannot be a closer.
No, it's amazing that almost everyone seems to have that guy, and the Royals really don't. And it's you just can't. If you can't strike a guy out, because you're going to have guys on base, and the longer you trifle with someone, one, it gives them more of an opportunity to get a hit, but or just put the ball in play. If you can strike a guy out, you can just nothing. What's behind you doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about your defense or any kind of bad luck. You just punch them out. Almost every time a team pitches its way out of a jam, a strikeout is involved. At least one strikeout is involved, because if you got a runner at third and one out, you strike a guy out, okay, and that takes that runner's power away a little bit. But when you can't strike guys out, the ball gets put in play, and it's a lot tougher to recover from a situation when you've got a runner at third and less than two out when you can't strike guys out. Almost every time you see a team that spits the hook in that situation, they do it with a strikeout, and the Royals just don't get it from their bullpen.
I know you have a couple of stats, and I have a couple of stats. These are some that will just tell you why I don't envision a turnaround anytime soon. Well, let's start with the pitching staff, just because we're on the topic of Lucas Erceg. You know, I just said, can you strike out 30% of the guys that you face?
Mm-hmm.
Eric Sarantola, he's thrown 4 innings. He struck out 38.9% of the guys he's faced. You can't really put too much stock into that. He's thrown 4 innings. Other than that, nobody is above 30%.
Wow.
Steven Cruz among relievers, and he's only thrown 14 innings, 29.4. Daniel Lynch, who's the best reliever, at 28.1. You know where Lucas Erceg ranks? 18.4.
Ew.
Nick Mears, 18.1.
Wow.
John Schreiber, 13%. That's not going to get it done, and not even close. But maybe the bullpen, maybe I'm just harping on the pitching staff and the bullpen, because the pitching staff, even though the bullpen's been very, I can't even say hit and miss, it's not been good. The rotation's been good enough to win games.
It's been miss, hit and miss.
Kurtis, right now,
Spam, eggs, and spam.
if you were to look at the qualified hitters for the Kansas City Royals, there is one league average or above bat. League average or above that, there is one, and you probably know who it is.
It's Bob.
Everybody else is below league average. I would go as far to say, because I've said that a lot in this segment, could you find me another lineup in baseball that has one of those? Just one. Across the board. Not the other guy that's leading, he's not even on the team anymore, in Elias Diaz. 127 WRC+. plus. But he only had 23 plate appearances. So among qualified hitters, Bobby Witt Jr. at 126, which is fine. It's not fantastic. It's fine. By his standards, he's probably going to want to be a little bit higher than that. His 2024 season, I want to say he was in the 150s or 160s. Garcia, 97. Carter Jensen, 93. Jack Caglio, 90. Kyle Isbell, 88. Isaac Collins, 88. Michael Massey, 82. Starling Marte, 82. Lane Thomas, 81. Vinny Pasquantino, 75. Salvador Perez, 66.
Wow.
I mean, that's jarring to me. There is no bad luck anymore. There is no bad stretch. I would love to say there are other things we're looking at here, Kurtis, where just give, and they can prove us wrong. They could say, hey, doubt us all you want, we're going to get hot. If I was just to give you those numbers to anybody in the world, to Jeff Passan later on in the show, that's a terrible baseball team. That is a 100-loss baseball team. You can't really...
I mean, having heard those numbers, Jack, I would have thought we were still in week 1 of the season.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting.
I mean, that is baffling to me. But I know you have numbers as well. I want to get to every single one of them.
But this one, I think we're up against the clock, so let's
take a break, come back.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So we'll take a quick break, come back, and wrap up hour number 2 of the program. The drill is coming up in the third hour of the program, but we still got a little bit to go here in hour number 2. We want to wrap it up with some very fun, I guess, somber stats of the Royals. So, Kay,
stories.
hit him with it.
Royals are the 24th team in the expansion era, which is since 1961, to have 3 separate 6-game losing streaks within their first 60 games. The other 23, have an average final one-loss record of 59-103.
That wasn't fun at all.
No, it wasn't going to be. The one
bamboozled
that kind of
us.
jumps out at you is the 2005 Astros, who finished 89-73, went to the World Series, but they were in the NLCS the previous year, and that was obviously just kind of a weird situation. But 59-103.
I really don't have
That's
any
hard
more
to do.
words. And we'll get Jeff Passan's thoughts in the 5 o'clock hour, but a team that really had high expectations for themselves, they are completely lost right now at this point. 22-37. They continue the road trip tonight in Cincinnati against the Reds. Linda Avila on the bump. 2-minute drill coming up next.
All right, what franchise has the longest active winning streak in World Series play? Brought to you by La Feta Delicatessen.
Hour number 3 of the program begins with the 2-minute drill. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, filling in for Seren Petro. He'll be back tomorrow. Kyle Collier is producing this thing. And we're going to kick off the drill heading to Philadelphia. Talking with Eitan Shander, Fox 29 and OddsShopper.com. Well, first, let's start with the Phillies here, Eitan. You know, they fire Rob Thompson. Don Mattingly takes over. I got to ask you this. Was that the change that needed to happen? It's why they are now above 500? Or is it more so just a team that was really good, had a bad start, and now they found their groove?
I think it's one of the same, to be honest with you, in that Rob Thompson wasn't losing baseball games, but he surely wasn't the reason why they would win here or there, or he had no plan to reverse course. And I think that was the biggest issue, is that he did not have a feel. And it was day-to-day feel as far as handling pitchers and pitch counts and taking guys out too early, leaving guys in too late, and just watching the bullpen do its work. But I also think that when you don't have guys hitting and you have to manufacture and you really have to create, that's where he struggled, and that's where his team struggled. So if it wasn't Kyle Schwarber and 3 other guys mashing home runs, this team was dead in the water. And that's changed significantly. I know they go up against the Dodgers. They lose 2 or 3. It's tough, clearly, against one, if not the best team in baseball. But where they were to where they are now, much better. They have a guy that they can at least believe in every day when they show up.
Switching over to the NFL, we know there was some big news about an hour ago with A.J. Brown being shipped to New England. It kind of felt like this was in the works for a long time, but what did you make of a deal like that with the reigning AFC champions and the New England Patriots?
I'm pretty surprised on the surface that this is all Howie Roseman got back. He is, rightly so, heralded as one of the smartest GMs in any room and has won trade after trade. Jalen Waddle went for more on the surface right now, and that's pretty surprising, because while the world knew that A.J. Brown was tired of Philadelphia, I don't think necessarily the world knew why. And I believe a big chunk of that is Nick Sirianni, is the head coach, is the lack of culture and control that Nick Sirianni has when something doesn't go right. We all have worked with someone, maybe we have someone like this in our family. Peyton Manning was the perfect example. It's why he failed. He talked to Rodney Harrison, all these guys that played against him in the playoffs, the Steelers, they all laughed because all you had to do was knock him off his rhythm, his routine, and he didn't know what to do. And people are like that in life, too. And the culture disintegrated because there were a couple of rough stretches. There was a time 2 years ago, Jack, in which A.J. Brown, for about 9 or 10 weeks, was the best player in the National Football League. Things he's done we haven't seen since Theo and probably won't since. And they had to get rid of him because the head coach couldn't make it work. With that said, I'm not surprised, and they at least got a first-round pick and a 4th as well. But I'm pretty surprised they didn't get a 3rd pick, at least a 3rd or 5th at least in there.
On the NBA side of things, we know the Sixers were swept out of the playoffs by the Knicks, and we saw a lot of changes on the front for Philadelphia. Is there more coming, whether that be front office personnel or roster?
I don't think so at this point. I think they're kind of locked in. I don't believe they trade Joel Embiid. I mean, look, crazy things could happen here. You've got a new general manager from Cleveland, a new perspective with Daryl Morey being out now, and maybe that's the case. But I think the biggest reason, the biggest blocker that Daryl Morey had during his tenure here, Jack, was he wasn't allowed to trade Joel Embiid. So if you now are willing to take pennies on the dollar, find a way out somehow of this Paul George disaster, that would be it. But you can't continue to build for a second-round exit. You can't sacrifice a kid like VJ Edgecombe. They just did it with Jared McCain. He wasn't the reason why they got knocked out in the playoffs, but you can't keep doing that is my point right now. So at some point you're going to have to make a decision, which is, yep, we're going to run it back until these guys either knees blow out or the contract's over, or we're going to start trading guys for pennies on the dollar. I don't think it's the latter this year.
And lastly, the Flyers were swept out of the playoffs by Carolina.
Good news today, Jack.
I know. I hate to do it to you, but I do got to get your takeaways from what you saw in that series.
Look, I think the Flyers were overachievers all year. You look at the front office, you've got a former all-worlder here in Danny Briere. Keith Jones also played GM at a high level. This is not a team. Rick Tocchet is the head coach. this is not a team, Jack, that's just going to go away after that. I think this is a young team that they're going to build on. This is what you need, layers of experience. The fact that they got routed by Carolina and they're returning significantly, pretty much the majority of the core, is great, because next year is going to be a really big gap year in which they go from, hey, we're happy we're here, to a legit deep Eastern Conference contender. And I think goaltending has just been godsend as well, that they really haven't had consistently leading up to this year with Dan Vladar. So I think they're going to be around for a little bit. Look, the Flyers are going to be in the Stanley Cup final well before the Sixers are even in the Eastern Conference finals.
Hey, Tom, thanks so much for joining us, and I promise the next time we talk to you, we'll have more positive things to go over.
It's all good, man. Enjoy it, Jack. Thank you.
Headed to Atlanta to talk with Chris Domino of 680 The Fan. Let's start baseball here. The Braves have just been red hot from the start. Royals fans know that all too well, as that was the first series of the year. They're 40-20, commanding 9.5 game lead over second place right now in the National League East. Chris, what have you seen so far in the first 60 games that has made them get this hot? 20 games over 500, and I'm sure in a lot of people's opinion, if the Dodgers weren't back-to-back champions, they would be the pick to represent the National League in the World Series.
Yeah, what it is, think of it like a math equation, and to the right of the equal sign is their record, 40-20, 20 games over, best record in baseball. But if you look at everything to the left, everything that will lead up to the equals, 40-20, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, you lost your catcher, best hitter on the team for a while. Carlos Cunha was not very good. Austin Riley has not been very good. You lost a couple of pitchers in spring training, another one once the season got started. The whole thing is sort of a little bit crazy at this point, and it's not fool's gold, because I'll tell you what they do. They attack starting pitching, and Walt Weiss's mantra, like mantra one this spring training was, we're going to go after starting pitchers. We're going to knock them out of games. We're not going to look at pitch count. We're going to be aggressive but not careless. We're going to be aggressive, not reckless. And that's sort of how they're attacking the offense. Then you throw in the back end of the bullpen, which is, maybe you can tell me San Diego's bullpen is better, but nobody's pitched better than the Atlanta Braves. They win close and late. Run differential is fantastic. It's through the roof, but I'm more of a close and late. Tell me what you do in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, and I'll tell you how good a baseball team you are. This team is the best team in baseball in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning.
Moving over to the NFL, the Falcons with their overhauled coaching staff are going to have a decision to make at quarterback, whether it be Tua Tagovailoa or Michael Penix. As of right now, I know we got a ways to go here. How do you see that quarterback battle going in camp?
Yeah, can I have an option 3? I mean, not
Go ahead.
negative on June 1st, but do I have an option? No, I'm asking. Can you give me an option 3?
Probably not.
Because Michael Penix's health is always going to be a question. Tua's headshots are going to be a question. But unless Michael Penix is on the field really for the month of August, I think Tua has an advantage. Now, you can rehab and you can do light drills and you can pull back and have the penny on, with no contact and pull back from center. This staff seems a little bit more adult than the last 2 that have been here. I think it feels really good in that department. That when you hear players talk, it even seems they sound, I don't want to say more intelligent, but they sound more in line with what you want your football team to sound like. So I think the regime change, I think the top-to-bottom change was going to be a good thing no matter what. I think a quarterback, they have no emotional investment in either one of these guys. They hardly have any financial investment. I think it's Tua's chance to maybe start August 1st, take hits, play a couple of preseason games, and maybe win the job. But if Michael Penix is as healthy as everybody keeps sort of indicating he is, and again, it's just shorts and T-shirt health, then maybe it becomes a battle. The problem is, Michael Penix hasn't been a very good quarterback when he's been healthy. Tua's had moments where he's been good, but he got benched. And the team that threw him out basically threw him out in a ton of money. So I don't have a ton of confidence in either. I kind of like some other things on the team, but if you don't have a quarterback, you don't go. If you don't have a good offensive coordinator, and that was a disaster last year, the head coach was a problem last year, I at least feel like you're going to be more competitive. We did this thing called Walkthrough Wednesdays around here, and nobody even knew what the hell that was. We did like Do-Si-Do Thursdays, River Dance Fridays. It just felt really amateurish. I do think that's going to change. Once you settle on the quarterback, this team better rally around him, because I think they're going to probably have to play a little bit above themselves offensively and defensively around the quarterback to give you a chance to actually win games.
Switching over to the NBA, the Hawks were eliminated in the first round by the Knicks, but it's also a Knicks team that has maybe been hotter than anybody so far in the NBA postseason, as they'll go for a finals championship against the Spurs beginning this week. But what changes need to be made in Atlanta for them to get over the hump?
Well, they're going to stick with the front office. It was actually okay at the second half of the year. Actually, they played the Knicks tougher than anybody has so far. So if you want moral victories, I don't necessarily, but at least I'll say they did play them better than the two series after that. I think Quinn Snyder's going to get an extension, so that part will be settled. Then you sort of got to get a little bit lucky. And, you hate to say that. You grew a little bit because maybe you were in the postseason, but you can't come out of the gate the way you did. You can't be fighting for a seed at the end of the season the way they had to by going on a ridiculous run, as good a basketball run as we've seen around here. You want to be better for the 82, not just better over the last 30. That will help you, I'm sure, at some point. But I do think it's no big changes coming unless they really drop a hammer and decide to go get somebody, because it's not free agency. If they get somebody in a trade, and there are a couple of guys that we hear are certainly capable of being traded this offseason, but it's not going to be the draft pick, and it's not going to be necessarily free agency. It's going to have to be a trade. We'll see if Salah, the guy who runs it, Ansi Salah, can actually pull something off. I'll tell you this. Everybody who thinks they're going to follow the San Antonio Spurs version of doing this, I pointed out this morning, you're insane. They had a 14% chance to get Wemby, 10.5% chance to get Castle, like a 6.5% chance to get Harper. Then you throw De'Aaron Fox, who actually was willing to be a 25-point scorer to take it down to 18 with fewer shots. I just don't know how that gets replicated. And I'm not telling you they beat the Knicks, although I'm rooting for that to happen. I am telling you that in a copycat world, I don't even know how anybody approaches the idea that you can hit on 3 draft picks, get a veteran who's willing to not only take this money but take fewer shots and be a leader in that regard. This one's going to be tough. And if anything ever looked built on paper to be a run, 3-5, 3-6 type deal with Wemby at the charge, I think everybody might be playing for second place at least 3 of those 6 years.
And lastly, I want to get your thoughts on college baseball, both with Georgia Tech and Georgia. We know all about the expectation for the Yellow Jackets, who right now are in a winner-take-all to get to the Super Regionals to take on the Kansas Jayhawks, who advanced yesterday. And Georgia, of course, they take care of business in the Athens Regional. Anything short of a College World Series championship considered a failure for these teams? Because, man, it doesn't look like anybody's slowing them down anytime soon.
No, UCLA getting knocked out certainly is going to help anybody who would have sort of had to face them before you got to the title, if not in the title itself. But Georgia Tech's got 50 wins with a whole lot of offense, and you've got to figure out a way to win on a Monday to just get to the Super Regional. The big story around here, and I think nationally, was Phelps getting thrown out of the Georgia game. What did he do? What didn't he do? Everybody's playing a he said. I don't know. Here, it's real simple for me. It was called a standard ejection, which means an umpire didn't even meet with a pool reporter. There's no such thing as a standard ejection. It's the stupidest 2-word phrase of all time. If a guy gets ejected, an umpire should have to tell you why. If it was celebrating, say it was celebrating. If it was taunting, say it was taunting. The idea that it wasn't even solved through yesterday and into today, and nobody really knows what he was thrown out for, is ridiculous. The fact that he's going to miss the first game of the Super Regional is the biggest problem. That does not seem to be punishment and crime sort of meeting up and people being satisfied. And I'm not saying it just as a guy who lives in the state of Georgia. I don't understand how, without physical contact with somebody, how you can get ejected and just not be the end of it. The fact that you're going to have to sit out a game really doesn't make any sense. And the fact that the umpires didn't have to answer to any of this makes even less sense than that.
Chris, appreciate your time as always, and you have a good week.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
In my mind, I'm gone to Carolina.
We're going to Charlotte to talk with Travis Hancock of 92.7 WFNZ. First of all, Travis, let's start hockey. Carolina going to be facing Vegas right now for the Stanley Cup beginning tomorrow night. What's your expectation going into this showdown?
I think it's for the Canes to continue, maybe not the level of dominance per se they've had so far. This series will extend further, but this has kind of felt like the Canes' year from the start of the postseason. And it's not just starting this year. It's something they've been building really for the last 8 seasons. And when some of the path cleared out of teams that have normally been in their way, whether it's Rangers years, Florida Panther years, Lightning years, feels like there was always a speed bump in the way that messed with the Hurricanes' route to the end. But right now, it really does feel like it's all things Canes, that they have been absolutely, utterly dominant through the first 3 series of the postseason, and that outside of about 10 minutes against Montreal, it has been all Hurricanes in their game so far.
Jumping over to the NFL with the Panthers, they do have 3 primetime games this year after making the postseason last year. We know the NFC South can be up and down all the time, but is it their division to lose?
I mean, the NFC South, it's always hard to say when in May and June. We know the division will be rather tight because it normally is. I don't expect the Panthers to take a step backwards. They're either going to maintain who they are or move forward. I think the biggest threat, although New Orleans is certainly better at this point than we thought they would be, I still think Tampa Bay is the biggest threat there. They've got talent, but they've got their own questions, and that is Baker Mayfield staying healthy. How do they replace Mike Evans? The pressure on Todd Bowles, does that become a problem? So I do still think that the Panthers will win the division, albeit the schedule, because it is a first-place schedule, much harder than it was a year ago. So that could play a factor here as well here during the 2026 season.
In the NBA, the Hornets had a pretty big jump in wins this year, going from 19-63 to 44-38. Though when you don't make it deep into the postseason, of course, some fans are going to say, well, what needs to change? How do you get over the hump? Some of these teams, I mean, San Antonio did get Victor Wembanyama. They turned things around really quickly. So did OKC with a ton of draft picks. Is there anything Charlotte should be trying to do this offseason to get into more of that 55-60 win category? Or do you like that they made a pretty big jump, stick with the younger players, and they continue to try to build?
I think you don't. I mean, at some point they may try to make a massive move. I don't know if it's time yet. You let the core of young players continue to grow. Such a great leap last year. I don't know if there's someone out there that they feel is going to put them over the top right now, or they can just maintain who they are. Maybe Miles Bridges gets traded. We'll see about that, only because he is kind of on the fringe of the core, and he's the older of the group. So maybe at some point they get a bigger 4. They do have 2 picks in the top 20, 14 and 18. They probably need a big man, whether it's Mara from Michigan if he's there, or Steinbach from Washington. If he's there, we don't know if they'll be there, but they kind of need that big. Ryan Kalkbrenner's there, but they might need someone a little more fluid. I think Mara would really do wonders for them, but I think another 5, a bigger 5, and a 4. But I don't really think they're going to mess with the perimeter core. They do have to re-sign Kobe White also. That's one thing that is kind of paramount. He takes them from a good offense to a very good offense. They traded for him, so I think they're going to have to re-sign him to a pretty decent deal. So he's got to be part of the mix. So re-sign White, figure out Bridges, figure out the 5. I don't think they're going to do anything too drastic here in the offseason.
And lastly, when it comes to college basketball, Duke coming off of the collapse to UConn in the NCAA tournament. We know John Shire has a ton of success in the regular season. He's gotten to a Final Four, but just hasn't been able to cut down the nets. What should the expectations be for Duke going into this year? And is it, yet again, championship or bust?
Yeah, this roster coming up here, it may not have the on paper right now the boozer or the flag, but it is definitely the deepest team that he's had in terms of. I mean, they can go 11 or 12 deep. They bring back a lot of guys. They went to the portal and got John Blackwell from Wisconsin, who's a 20-point per game guy. They've reclassified Boumche, a European player that is. I mean, he might end up being their best overall talent when you look at this roster when it's all said and done. They are as loaded as ever. There might not be number 1 because of Florida and the front line coming back, but they're going to be way up there, and they've got to figure out how to seal the deal and finish late in these tournament games. They still had a great run in terms of wins under Shire. He's been fantastic in everything but closing out moments, and that's the next step. But when it comes to roster building and talent and managing everything, he's got this thing on complete lock. Just a matter of time before they figure it out and win a national championship. But it's going to happen soon before like the chatter gets not the chatter about Shire's job, but just the pressure to win it. I don't think it's building more and more, and definitely after the way they lost last year, he'll be paramount in 2026, 2027.
Travis, thanks so much for hopping on. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, man. Thank you.
We're going to California and Texas and New York.
All right, we're going to head to New York and talk with Dan Schwartzman of D Sports Media. First of all, Dan, how we doing this evening?
I am great. Beautiful day here in New York as we prepare for the NBA Finals. First time in 27 years, I can say that.
Well, I was already going to assume that you were in a great mood because of those New York Knicks, because they sweep the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and of course they will await the San Antonio Spurs, who managed to win Game 7 against OKC, the reigning champs in the NBA. First question for you. How are they going to neutralize a guy like Victor Wembanyama?
I don't know if you can neutralize him. You have to try to contain him, but also maybe let him get some points, but try to make sure that the others around him, like Fox and Castle, don't get their points. And to me, I think the key is Mitchell Robinson. And Robinson has a fractured pinky, but thankfully that doesn't mean he can't play. He's a very good defensive player, and he's got muscle when it comes to that over Wembanyama, who's obviously much more skilled. But I look at this and I think to myself, okay, if you're the Knicks, keep him on the outside. Let him kill you with three-pointers rather than going inside. And I think that's the strategy that I would go with. If he hits 10 three-pointers and beats you, hey, hats off to Wembanyama. But ultimately, you don't want him to dominate inside, and Mitchell Robinson needs a key to kind of stop him from doing so.
Now, this Knicks team has so many greats on it. It feels like they're just such a well-rounded bunch. But the guy that stands out the most, I'm sure to everybody, would be Jalen Brunson. Now, quick one for you here. Is he already up there with Patrick Ewing for all-time Knicks greats?
Oh, no question about it. And I think when you think about how they brought him in, it was a free agent signing. A lot of people questioned the move. He wasn't a full-time starter in Dallas. The Knicks were not a sexy destination for free agents. And people kind of thought they settled for Brunson, but Leon Rose obviously knew something that others didn't. He looked at the body of work in Dallas and said, this guy has star potential if given the opportunity to be more than, I guess, the number 2 guy behind Luka Doncic. And that's exactly what's happened. And he's beloved. He's a good dude, doesn't get in trouble. He's a family man. He embraces being a Knick. He took less money, by the way, on his renewal contract, significantly less. So the Knicks could add more pieces around him. And he's one of the greatest free agents in the history of New York sports. Forget just basketball. I mean, in the history of New York sports, in all 4 major sports, that's how good he's been. And he is up there in that rarefied air. And if he can somehow win here, okay, if he can win here, he's literally up there in that top 3, top 5.
All right, jumping over to the NFL. Now, it's been a wild day across the league, of course, with the Myles Garrett news. But prior to that trade, it kind of felt like the story of the day was OBJ coming back to the Giants. They also signed a slew of other veteran receivers, including a former Chief in Juju Smith-Schuster. What did you make of all those receivers coming in for the workout and the Giants signing them?
You know, it's nostalgic, right? OBJ is back in New York where it all started. He didn't leave here on a good note. Let's not kid ourselves. Now, he's probably a bit more mature now, but he also needs a job because not many teams are going to be in the OBJ business because he hasn't been very good in a long time. I don't know what you're getting with him besides an injury. It's like bringing Neymar into your soccer team. Great name, but he doesn't really play that much. The Giants need help at receiver. Neighbors comes back. They lost Robinson in free agency. They seemed okay with that, even though he had 1,000 yards for them last year. But I don't know if these are the types of moves that will scare a team. If you line up OBJ and Smith-Schuster, are other teams going to be game planning for these guys? I don't think so. They're shells, especially OBJ is a shell of what he used to be, and he's done nothing over the last couple of years to kind of change that perception that there's nothing left in the gas tank.
Should there be any concern with Malik Neighbors? Of course, these guys aren't coming in to replace him or to take any sort of snaps from him, but with the surgery, should Giants fans be a little bit worried?
I think anytime you talk about leg injuries, the answer is yes. Most guys, and I say most, do recover, and you don't know that they were injured. Sometimes guys are kind of robbed of that last bit of speed, that burst that they once had that kind of separated them from other people at their position, and they never regained that. I'm not sure yet what we're going to get from Neighbors because obviously he has not played a regular season game since being injured. But you should always be concerned when it comes to injuries like that. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. A young guy, obviously works very hard, great athlete, that he should be able to recover 100%. But the caveat is not everybody is 100% after any sort of leg injury, and that's why you have to be a little bit nervous.
Last one on the Giants. I know Twitter is a place that we always like to read into stuff. It's vague more often than not, but are things all good on the front with Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter?
I think they were told to play nice, but politics are superheated these days in this country. I think I'm saying that lightly. And when it comes to Trump, he is a lightning rod for controversy. Whatever you think, if you're a supporter, you're not a supporter. There doesn't seem to be much of a middle ground, right? You either love him or you hate him. Dart obviously loves him. Carter obviously hates him. So I don't know how that plays out in the locker room, but when you have, a divide like that over a polarizing figure, I'm not sure just 1 or 2 days in the right statement actually changes people's minds. I think this could be divisive in the locker room. This could be a problem. Now, they have John Harbaugh, who obviously is a very strong head coach who can maybe nip this in the bud before it really amounts to much. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you all is great because Carter came out with a statement that seemed to say so. I think there's a lot more to it, and I think it's something definitely worth watching.
And lastly, I want to get your thoughts on the baseball front with the Yankees and the Mets. The Yankees, of course, at 36-23, second in the East, and they just got Garrett Cole back from injury. I'm sure that most Yankees fans aren't concerned just yet with the Rays being ahead of them, but is this going to be a battle till the end of September, or do you see the Yankees eventually catching up and then pulling away from a team like Tampa?
Jack, you had a front row seat to this Yankee team recently when they were in Kansas City. They're impressive. Now, there are some holes. The bottom of the lineup just frankly doesn't hit much. The bullpen is garbage. Let's not kid ourselves. But that rotation, you mentioned Garrett Cole has now come back, thrown 2 starts, hasn't given up a run yet. Cam Schlittler, who goes tomorrow for the Yankees, is lights out. Right now, he's a Cy Young in the American League. You got really talented young pitchers like Warren and Weathers. And you still have Carlos Rodon, who's coming back from his injury. He's had about 4 starts since coming back. It's probably the deepest rotation in baseball right now. Luis Gil, who's won a Rookie of the Year, is now in the minor league. So they're legit. Tampa's always legit. They're built right. They're managed correctly by Cash. He's awesome. It's going to be a fun battle between those two teams. They kind of separate themselves from everybody else. Probably in the American League potentially, but definitely in the East. And I think it's going to be a fun battle down this summer and the fall for sure.
And when you look at the Mets, not quite the same story, of course, and a division that can be such a bear with teams like the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. Any chance that we see them climb out of the basement and get close to contention, or is this a team that just dug themselves into too big of a hole from the start?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think they dug themselves too big of a hole, and Atlanta's too good, right? And they've opened up a massive lead. You're a baseball guy. Explain to me why Mendoza still has a job. This is a fundamentally terrible team. They make stupid mental lapses, and you sit there and tell yourself, wait a minute, these are plays high schoolers don't make. A manager has got to be responsible for stupid and just disgusting play by his players, clearly bonehead plays, and yet he still has a job. I think you make a move at manager, that shakes things up, and this Mets team can get right back into it. But if it's just kind of the status quo, which it's been, they'll win some games, lose some games, go on a run to win, go on a bit different run to lose games. I have no faith in this team based on what I've seen through this first third of the season.
Well, Dan, appreciate you hopping on, and we'll talk to you next time.
Anytime, Jack.
All right, the La Feta Delicatessen, end of the hour answer. What franchise has the longest active winning streak in World Series play? They have won 9 straight. Which is 2 sweeps and then a championship clinching win.
I want to say San Francisco. I know they swept Detroit, but did they lose?
They lost in 7 to the Royals.
Oh, I thought it was leading up to that. So it's probably been a while then since this team's been in the World Series.
Mm-hmm. It's been more than 30 years.
Oh.
And the streak goes back 50 years.
How about Cincinnati?
The Reds swept the A's in 1990.
All right.
After sweeping the Yankees in 1976, and then after winning Game 7 of the celebrated 75 World Series against Boston. So the Reds have not lost have won 9 consecutive World Series games.
I probably should have seen the foreshadowing there because it's Cincinnati tonight.
Could be.
Could have been one of my guesses. But yeah, that was complete and utter dominance.
Yeah. The 76 Reds in particular. Although the first year that the Reds were here, I think it was 90, maybe 97, 99, one of those years. I was up at the ballpark, and Marty Brennaman, longtime voice of the Reds, father of Tom Brennaman, was in the press. There was a little area, the press area, where you could just go in and get your sodas, hot dogs, or whatever, and just sit and eat. And I walked in to get a hot dog, and I turn around, and Marty Brennaman's at the soda machine, which looks like any soda machine. You go in, just, get your eyes, get your drink, and turn around. I was like, wow, Marty Brennaman, cool. So I went over and talked to him, and I said, if the Royals had a closer in 1976, this might not be the first time you had come to Kauffman Stadium. And he stopped, and he goes, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that. And I said, very cool. Well, I mean, it's possible in 76, but they would have crushed the Royals like they crushed everyone.
But he would have been there.
It would have been there. He just kind of went, wait a minute.
I give you the credit for going up to iconic people in the press box, because that's something that very few people are able to master.
The only guy that I got shy around, and I've talked to some of the all-time greats, the only person that I deferred was my first year in radio, 96. And by the way, 2 weeks from today will be the 30th anniversary of my first day on the radio. I got a credential to go see the Cardinals play in St. Louis. And I'm in the press area, the food area, and it's kind of like a cafeteria thing. You kind of go along the line, and at the end of the thing, you get your drink or whatever. And at the end of the line, I look over, and to my right, about 10 feet away, Jack Buck walks in and just sits at this little table and is looking up at the TV screen, his legs crossed. And I kind of looked at him. It was like I'd seen, Santa Claus. I mean, it's like, wow, there he is. And that was the most famous person I'd ever been that close to in sports. And I thought about it, and the guy next to me goes, dude, you done? Oh, yeah, sorry. So I got my tray, and I turned, and I walked about 3 more feet, and I went, I can't. I'm not going to bother Jack Buck. He's just sitting there watching the game, and that's
midst of something.
I'm nothing, and he's Jack Buck. And I went, nah. For 30 years, I've thought I should have done it. I should have just set my tray down and said, Mr. Buck, pleasure to meet you, and something. We didn't have, camera phones in 1996, but would have been cool to say that I shook, Jack Buck's hand and said hello. I've regretted that every day since. So, guys out there, don't hesitate. But
it's tough in the moment to do, even though you overthink it and you believe that they're going to be dismissive of you. I'm not saying that somebody couldn't be. I mean, it's possible that somebody just doesn't want to be interacted with. But if you go up there and say, love your work, I'll continue to listen, always been a big fan, and then leave, who's going to have the time to be like, don't come up and talk to me? Now, if you sit down.
And I'm sure he'd have been fine. Yeah. Wow, that's great there, young man.
It would have been cool.
Fine.
But that's one person of how many do you think that you have gone up to?
Many. Everyone that I've been in. And that was kind of the lesson. I'm like, don't ever take that for granted again.
Yeah.
Most famous, most impactful sports celebrity you've ever spoken to or met in person? Who would that be?
Me.
I have a good answer.
Mine's passing 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
That'd be the first time I'm talking to Pass in about 20 minutes. So maybe that's it. You know what? I'll say Kevin Harlan. I mean, just
but nobody on a player or
a player.
You know, just anybody of a player of any fame.
Maybe George Brett.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
it's pretty big.
Yeah, I'd say just being around Surprise in the complex down there, you get to talk to a lot of great people. But yeah, I'd go player-wise, George Brett. Broadcasting-wise, I'd say Kevin Harlan.
For me, broadcasting-wise would probably be that I don't count Jack Buck. Ernie Harwell. I got to actually talk to Ernie a few times. There's probably somebody else in that list. Player-wise would be Hank Aaron.
Oh.
When he came back, he came to Kauffman Stadium for some celebration. I can't remember what it was. And he was down in that little media room. That place was full. And I just made sure when he was leaving, I'm gonna stand by the door and I'm gonna shake his hand at least. And I shook his hand and said something. And when I shook his hand, I looked down at his hand and just took like a little mental picture of that. So I'm like, that's the hand that gripped the bat that beat the Babe. And I could not stop thinking about that simple fact that I just shook hands with the hand that hit 755, and that was pretty cool. That's the, I wouldn't say I was starstruck, but that's about the closest I've been to being that way with a player. And I have had, and I've told this story on Twitter, I've had Patrick Mahomes walk in behind me while I've been in the men's room. So
there's another one.
That's just a story no one's going to probably replicate.
You're surrounded by greatness.
Yes.
It is interesting, and we'll segue this into setting up the NBA Finals, which includes the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs, because I do believe there's a pretty good segue to this. You take for granted at times when you're watching somebody on TV so often that, when you see him in person, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, Todd Lebo's out there for the press conferences.
I've met Todd many times. That's not that big a deal.
Todd's awesome. Yeah, Todd might be the most influential. Yeah, but I would say that it's one thing where when you see them in person, you kind of say, "Wow, I this is so much different to me." You're almost more starstruck now in Kansas City. You've got Patrick Mahomes. You've got Bobby Witt Jr. I've seen both in person. It doesn't feel the same way as when you are seeing somebody for the first time, like if you were to see Barry Bonds for the first time, kind of be starstruck. It's like, this is a guy that no matter where he goes, multiple people are starstruck. Hank Aaron, same thing as you said. I'm sure that you were one of many people in many media rooms that went, wow, that's him.
And that was my second year in the business, so I hadn't, after a while you kind of lose that. Mm-hmm. You get beyond that and you go, okay, that's, but first off, the first time out there, you're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. After 30 years, I still look back at Aaron though and think that was still a moment.
No, that's a moment of a lifetime for a lot of people. Yeah, I mean that's hard to beat, and we have so many different generations of all kinds of sports where there will be people growing up now that in 20 years will have a different perception of like the greatest ever than we do. Like I think it's fascinating in this studio alone. There are people that witnessed the prime of Michael Jordan and would say, I've never seen anything like Michael Jordan before. Kyle and I didn't get to witness the prime. We weren't born yet for that. Ours is LeBron James and really the tail end of Kobe Bryant's reign, because Kobe Bryant started taking off mid to late 90s, toward the end of Jordan's run. Then you had LeBron debut in 2003, and you're going, that's who I would consider the best of all time. But there's going to be people that are 8 years old right now watching the NBA. Yes, LeBron's still really good, but they're not going to say, LeBron's the best that I watched. And they'll be starstruck by different people. And now going into this NBA Finals, you've got the Knicks, who don't really have that starstruck player. They're an incredibly good team. I wouldn't fault you if you
playing incredibly good basketball, albeit against teams that were seated below them.
Yes.
They're still
dominating,
tearing through them.
I watched that Game 4 against Cleveland where you have the Cavs at home, and I thought to myself, if I bought a ticket, not that I would at that, but if it was 3-0, I'm like, I probably should watch this at home. But the way they kicked their ass for 4 quarters gave me a different vibe around New York. Like, I knew the Knicks were good, but the way they made a mockery of everybody they faced, you pick against them, you got to have another reason other than just Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, and I said, and it's not just Jalen Brunson on that team. I noted, I think last week that it was on Friday when Todd and I were up at Unlimited RV, that if the Knicks were swept in this series by an average of exactly 10 points per game, they would still end up with the greatest point differential in NBA history. They're 41 points better than the next best team.
Jeez.
They're plus 271. That's insane. They've had by all accounts, they've had the greatest 11-game stretch in the history of the NBA, regular or postseason. No team has had a higher point differential in an 11-game stretch. That they've done that in the playoffs is even more amazing. This is the best team they will have played all year, and there's no doubt about that. This is a team that isn't afraid to go on the road. But part of the reason why they beat Oklahoma City was because I think they had nice matchups. They're going to the matchups are completely different with New York, and it'll be interesting to see. I saw a 4.5-point spread. Let me check the most recent series odds. Spurs minus 198, Knicks 166. So the Spurs are a decent favorite, but not overwhelming. I cannot wait for this series to begin on Wednesday night because it's so many different things. You have it's the next era. I mean, some young players on the Knicks. You've got the young monster star for the Spurs and other guys. I mean, the Spurs aren't just Wemby either. I mean, you look at the
Fox,
the way
Castle.
Fox and the way Dylan Harper was playing. And that's with Fox, Harper, or with Castle, Harper, and Wemby. That's 3 guys who are impactful players who are 22 or younger. I mean, if they win this one, and particularly if they're
set up,
just look out because they're not going to go away anytime soon. And if the Knicks win, I mean, that kind of unleashes that. They haven't won a title since '73, so we're getting some new blood either by the team and all the players, or just this young team that's now. This will be the first Spurs title. Would be the first Spurs title without Popovich. So that's some new blood. I cannot wait for this series, and I hope it goes 7, just to watch these two teams play for 2 weeks. I could not care less about the Stanley Cup final because it's 2 teams I just absolutely have no cares. I can't even pick a favorite. Vegas, Carolina, I won't watch a second of it.
Well,
but the NBA finals are going to be great.
You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people in Kansas City going, I don't care too much about the NBA finals. It doesn't excite me. Maybe you were an Oklahoma City fan.
You weren't a basketball fan. Well, I'll just say it. If you're not interested in this finals, don't tell me you're a basketball fan.
Well, you just had to watch Game 7. And to me, when you're watching the Spurs, and it kind of goes hand in hand with our conversation about being starstruck, I've never seen any athlete, any sport, look like the way Victor Wembanyama does when he's playing. It's one thing, and to me, even in the NBA, pretty much everybody that's on the starting 5 is 6'6" and above.
Yeah.
You're not going to see many 6'1", 6'2" guys. They're all huge. But I look at like Hartenstein defending Victor Wembanyama all series long. He's not small. No. But he just doesn't look anywhere close to Victor Wembanyama because he's dribbling the ball up the floor. He's moving up and down in transition. Chet Holmgren's 7'1", 7'2" himself, and he's still just overshadowed by Wembanyama.
That was a big issue, I think, in that series. For Oklahoma City. That really Holmgren was completely neutralized by Wemby, and which allowed them to throw a lot of guys at SGA, and they managed to win twice there, which is saying something. When you play 4 games on the home court of the number 1 seed, defending champion, you win twice there. That ain't no fluke.
No. And they won 16.
And they're tough.
They're so tough. They're physical. I mean, you have to go to OKC and win Game 7, the reigning champs.
Yeah.
Kyle was the only one that predicted that correctly last week. He went San Antonio.
That's right.
We all went Oklahoma City.
The man.
And the Spurs won 6 and 7. And it's a combination of so many things they do well. I thought the beginning of Game 7 was one of the coolest starts to any elimination game I've seen in a long time. Maybe we wouldn't have to go back that far because I remember in Game 7 last year, Indiana and OKC, Halliburton was just going off, and then he, of course, had the Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really cool moment because it was one player going, I'm about to put up 45 points and win this and become immortalized. To me, the Spurs came out, and it was like you're watching a boxing match, and they weren't even trying to feel out Oklahoma City. They literally went right off the ropes and were throwing haymakers. Now, the Thunder responded because that's just what the Thunder do.
Yeah, and when they got back into it felt like, all right,
they're going to run away with it.
They righted the ship. They found their footing, and they're going to run by them. And then the Spurs, to their great credit, just kept extending it. And every time Oklahoma, you think they got an answer, the Spurs would find a way to score or get a stop. It was an amazing toughness and a combination of toughness and skill for them to win that game.
And just silenced a loud and chaotic crowd from the get-go. There's also, when I pick superstars in the NBA, and I don't try to go way over the top with it and pick guys that really aren't superstars. To me, it's a combination of how watchable you are, right? Is your game fun to watch? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that say SGA is not fun to watch because he just tries to hunt for fouls. He's flopping. I don't know if I would go as far to say he's just not fun at all. I think a lot of people get annoyed in the same way we've seen in Kansas City. When you win a lot, you get certain calls your way. People get annoyed with you. I still think SGA is a very good player. You can't win MVP awards and just be some fraudulent guy. But watchability, how entertaining you are. LeBron was entertaining as hell for years. Steph Curry was entertaining as hell. Kevin Durant's entertaining as hell. Victor Wembanyama, it's just impossible to be bored by what he's doing because he is 7'5".
Because you haven't seen it before.
You haven't seen it. So I said earlier, there's nobody in any other sport that rivals it. Shohei Ohtani does in baseball, but in Shohei, whether you watch him pitch, hit, run, your jaw's on the floor. To me, there's this element of Wembanyama doesn't look real. Ohtani is a big human and does what he does, but at no point do I go, that doesn't look like a human being out there.
No.
Victor Wembanyama looks like a creative player out there that you make a mockery of the game. It's like, I'm going to make my guy 7'5" who can shoot threes and dribble the ball and has 99 speed. He's not that fast, but he can move. And then there's the other part of me picking a superstar. You play like that, you're watchable, then it's your mentality. People loved it about Kobe Bryant for so many years. The Mamba mentality. Over my dead body. Don't know if you guys had the chance to catch his post game after Game 7. He was emotional talking about Greg Popovich. But he said for the NBA Finals, I feel like my life depends on it. He's 22 years old. He obviously is a very emotional guy. He was emotional after the win. But if you're the New York Knicks, and they're a damn good team, they're physical, they have a rabid fan base, the game at Madison Square Garden is going to be awesome. This series, I really hope, is going to be awesome and go into 7. But you hear that from Victor Wembanyama? I'm playing like my life depends on it. I know guys have mentalities, but when you look at players that are that good and that young and consider this sport life or death for them, that's when you know you've got a true superstar. I am playing because I'm good. I make a living off of it. But this is my life. If I don't win this thing, I'm going to be distraught until the next time we pick up a basketball in a regular season game. And even then, I might not be over it. There are superstars in that league that just care that they can put up the individual accolades. They can have those trophies when it's all said and done. I don't get that from Victor Wembanyama. I think if Victor Wembanyama never won an MVP and he just won 2 or 3 championships, that would be what he cares about. If you told him, from this point on, you will never win an MVP, you might make which just won't happen, of course. You won't be an all-star, I don't think he'd care. I think what he cares about is winning championships and doing it again in San Antonio. And the Spurs did that very well under Greg Popovich. They did it in a much different way, right? They were the great ball movement. Mm-hmm. They had the old school skills, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. Then they had the second iteration of them with Kawhi Leonard. Now the Spurs are back, and they have a freak on the floor. And I mean that in the best possible way. He is just freakish. He's that dang good. And if you're not watching this finals, as you said, Kurtis, you're not a basketball fan.
Nope.
The Knicks and Spurs is going to be cinema. I can't wait for it. You've also got the Stanley Cup 2 with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights. So a quick break, come back and wrap up hour number 3 of the program. Wrapping up hour number 3 of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Ren Petro back tomorrow. To kick off hour number 4, Jeff Passan will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the Kansas City Royals, who begin a 3-game series tonight in Cincinnati. 15 games below 500 on June 1st. Does he think any turnaround's going to happen? Does he think they'll be selling off some pieces some point soon? We'll get his thoughts. Also on the college baseball front, Georgia Tech leads Oklahoma 7-5 in the bottom of the 8th. The Sooners are the home team in this one. If Oklahoma comes back, they'll head to Lawrence, take on KU in the Super Regionals this coming weekend. If Georgia Tech holds on to their lead, the Jayhawks will go to Atlanta.
One thing that's nice about these college World baseball games is that they're lickety-split.
They
all
are.
of them just like
pitch clock and everything. They move quickly. Jeff Passan next.
All right, 4 players from current Big 12 schools have scored an overtime touchdown in the postseason. Name any one of them. Brought to you by La Feta Delicatessen.
Hour number 4 of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, filling in for Seren Petro. Kurtis Seaboldt's here. Kyle Collier is producing this thing. And it's now time to talk some baseball with Jeff Passan. And the Royals begin a 3-game series tonight in Cincinnati. But first things first, Jeff, thanks for joining us this evening.
Pleasure is mine, Jack. I'm assuming that you, like Seren, want to just trade everyone right now?
Oh, man. I just need to see some good baseball is what I need to see, and I'm not sure it happens tonight. They get a gift in not having to face Chase Burns, but I got to get your thoughts on this. I mean, this is a team that not just in Kansas City, but it seemed like everywhere in baseball after the World Baseball Classic, we're high on the Royals. They could win this division. They could compete with the Detroit Tigers, but unfortunately, they're 15 games below 500 on June 1st. They still technically are in the hunt, the wild card picture at 6.5 games back, but I don't think you can have that conversation until you start winning some series. So what have you seen that has gone so wrong for this club?
Well, I suppose on one hand that all of us who were bullish on the Royals were right that they can compete with the Tigers. I mean, the Tigers also happen to have the worst record in Major League Baseball right now, and the Royals are only a half game up on them. So, yeah, it's been a disaster of a season. And, you know, I think there are plenty of things that we could point to, the ineffectiveness of the offense and the struggles of everybody not named Bobby Witt Jr. And, you know, even offensively, Bobby Witt's having a very good season, but it's not up to the MVP runner-up type caliber that he's had in the past. Michael Garcia, where's the slug? Salvador Perez has always had trouble getting on base, but 26% of the time is just not going to cut it. Vinny Pasquantino, you know, a 630 OPS. I thought coming off the WBC especially, he was primed for a great season. Jack Caglione has shown flashes. Carter Jensen shown flashes, finally getting a home run yesterday to the opposite field, but just the offense has been pretty dreadful top to bottom. Then you go to the pitching, and when you have the injuries that they do, whether it's Cole Reagans or Chris Bubich now, even if you do have effective starting pitching in Michael Wacha and in Seth Lugo and, you know, league average or I suppose slightly below from Noah Cameron, but you know, you have Daniel Lynch with a breakout type season. There's just not enough, though. There's not enough depth. There's not enough effectiveness. There's not enough quality. And at the end of the day, I think you're exactly right. It comes down to, did you win the game or not? And you can look at teams that have flaws, like the Tampa Bay Rays, for example, who have only 3 hitters. In Yandy Diaz, Junior Caminero, and Jonathan Aranda, who have been consistently above league average with their OPS. And you look at their rotation, and it's actually pretty similar with a couple of effective pitchers. I know Nick Martinez has been out of his mind this season, and Shane McClanahan's been very good, but I'd say the rotations are pretty similar, and the bullpen, like the Rays, has been solid, but if you look at it top to bottom, I wouldn't say that it's clearly, definitively, totally better than the Royals, and yet they have almost opposite records. And so what does it come down to? There is, when you have a paucity of talent compared to the best teams in baseball, I think there are some intangibles that are really difficult to quantify, and that's something that the Royals are clearly missing right now.
Mark Twain, who to my mind is the only author who is considerably better than you, said, once talked about lies, damn lies, and statistics. But some stats are pretty damn demonstrative and illustrative. And there's one that I think maybe capsulizes what's wrong with the Royals this year. They have 30 quality starts. Only the Dodgers have more. The league average winning percentage when you have a quality start is just over 700. The Royals are 16 and 14. Is there a stat you can think of that more describes or illustrates what's wrong with this team? Why they're not winning?
I mean, here and it's got a very simple explanation, Curtis, which is that a quality start, you need to go at least 6 innings and give up 3 or fewer runs, and 3 runs is not enough. Like this offense, it just doesn't consistently score 4+ runs, and so those are games that you're going to lose when you're putting up 0 or 1 or 2. And What the Royals are going to do about their offense at this point, I don't know. I mean, JJ Piccolo said pretty clearly, we feel like we've got the right staff in place. At some point, though, something needs to change, and that's either coaches or players. And players are a lot tougher to move than coaches are. So it will be very interesting to see how the Royals handle this, because what they're doing this season, it is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable. This is not, when they put this team together, anything close to what they had envisioned for it. So when you start doing an autopsy in season on where did things go wrong, sometimes the answers to those questions are going to bring you to really difficult conclusions. And you just have to be committed to winning above all else. It doesn't matter what the personnel is. It doesn't matter who the coaches are. Winning is the priority. And so how are you putting your team in the best position to win? That's the question that the Royals need to be asking themselves right now, because they're not doing enough of it.
There are two bits of conventional wisdom I think are conflicting with the Royals right now. One is that Matt Quatraro is in a situation where he's unlikely to be fired anytime soon, if not in this regular season. The other is that when a team's lost 16 of 19, somebody's ass needs to be in someone's briefcase, to quote Wilford Brimley. Which one? What happens in that situation? Someone feel like you need to pay the price, but it ain't going to be the manager, is it?
I don't think it's going to be the manager, but the worse this gets, the louder that conversation is going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think before you get to the manager, the coaching staff tends to come first. It's not always the case, but when the offense is functioning the way that it has, clearly there are things that the organization could be doing better. Now, whether that's a question of talent evaluation and acquisition or player development, that I don't know how to assign the percentages to that.
Yeah.
But I think the point Jack made earlier, like the numbers are telling a story right now, and it's a story of great failure by this team. That's an extremely lucid point. You can't argue with that. And so the sense of urgency of the Royals, to me, is going to be a really interesting part of the conversation going down the stretch. Not just the sense of urgency to get better or to get out of these doldrums that have gripped and choked the life out of this team, but how do you respond to it? And it needs to be a multi-point response. It needs to address this season, but it also needs to address the future and how they're putting themselves in a position for this not to happen again.
The only other person, if it's going to be an in-season change, the only other person with the crosshairs on him has got to be, obviously, Alex Seaboldt. But if they make a move sometime on this road trip or whatever, I think it might be the right move. But at the same time, there's a lot of people going to be going, now? I mean, what? Why now? Why not May 1st? It's damned if they do, damned if they don't.
We can't look at what they haven't done, though. Right?
There's no wrong time to make the right move.
Yeah, exactly. They have their reasons for not choosing to do any staff changes up to this point. Now, are those reasons sound? Are they salient? Do they make sense? That's up for every individual to decide. I do think that as this has continued to get worse, they've been waiting, and not just like waiting around and doing nothing, but they've been waiting for things to change. But at some point, like the Royals have a real shot at having the worst record in Major League Baseball by tomorrow morning. That's not great, guys.
No. 24 teams in the expansion era have had 3 separate 6-game losing streaks before they've played their 60th game or within their first 60 games, and the other 23 have an average final record of 59 and 103. That's the road to disaster. That's a sign of not just a bad team, but a terrible team.
I think we're already driving on that road, my friend.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was just. It felt like there was some promise after the Seattle sweep and especially you take those first 2 games in the Cleveland series and you lose the last 2, but then you get 2 against Detroit, and this was before Detroit had gone into its complete free fall. And since then, 6-game losing streak, a win. 4-game losing streak, 2 wins. 6-game losing streak. And we've talked in this segment plenty, Curtis, about how a 6-game losing streak is not entirely going to cross out a playoff berth. And a 9 or a 10-game losing streak, that's not disqualifying either. Like, you can come back from those. But when you stack losing streak on top of losing streak, and you have 3 4+ game losing streaks over a 19-game stretch, you're just putting yourself in a position to never be able to claw your way out of that. And that's where I fear the Royals have put themselves right now. It's one thing to be back in the division. It's another just to be 15 games under 500, because not only do you have to get, let's just say you get back to 500, and on the way, think about the number of teams that you're going to have to pass. And oh, by the way, there are still, even if you get back to 500, even if the Royals were to rip off a 15-game winning streak starting tonight, they would presumably still be behind the Chicago White Sox and the Cleveland Guardians of the Central.
Yeah.
There's just so much work that a team has to do that I have a difficult time at this point seeing that happening, which is a rough thing to say with 100+ games left in the season.
And it's even a surprise looking, some things are a surprise from the preseason expectations, but even from where we are looking back, most of the time when a team has big losing streaks is because they don't have very good starting pitching. Usually, when you look at a team that has Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo and some of the guys, the way Stephen Kolek has pitched and Noah Cameron at times, that you'd think that starting staff was too good to lose 6 games in a row. But it speaks to just how bad the offense and the end of the bullpen has been, that they've been able to pull that off. This is not a starting pitching staff that you would expect to have 3 6-game losing streaks before June 1st.
No, and in the ways that they're losing, that's just the painful part. It's blowing leads. Like, what were they up 6-4 on the Rangers? Mm-hmm. And Lucas Erceg comes in, hit, and all of a sudden that lead is gone. And when you're in a situation like the Royals are right now, where you feel like you can't do anything right, finally you put a game together and there's some hits and there's some big moments and there's some solid starting pitching, and it's like, okay, we're getting back on track right now, and then one inning derails the entire thing. As tough as that is, just physically, knowing that you're putting everything you can to try and win a single game, mentally it's just an absolute punch to the nuts. Like, how boy, that's mixing metaphors right there, but
it feels like 2 losses.
It does.
It feels like, because you've already got the win marked down in your mind, and then it's taken off, then you get a loss. It feels like losing 2 games.
And then then you start questioning other things. How long is this team going to stay together? I mean, there are Royals players right now who are wondering, am I going to be traded? Like, you think they don't think about this? Of course they do. Of course they do, because it's their life being upended, and it's a realistic possibility when you're losing games like this. And the question for the Royals, I think, at this point, how much time do you give yourself before that decision? Who are we going to trade? How much of this are we going to unload? How much are we going to start over? Like, to me, the untradables on this team right now, Bobby Witt Jr. is not going anywhere. Maikel Garcia, not going anywhere. Carter Jensen, not going anywhere. Jack Caglione, probably not going anywhere. Beyond that, how many guys are you in a position, if you're the Royals, to say no to?
Probably nobody. And that includes Vinny. You did mention Vinny in that list. And I assume that's for a reason.
Vinny Pasquantino's got 2 years until free agency.
Yep.
One of those could theoretically be lost if the lockout continues throughout next season. So
Yeah.
I think it's short of an extension, and nothing he's done on the field this year has screamed to the Royals, we should extend the guy. Short of an extension, I think you have to listen, because you know that there are going to be teams out there that are going to want Vinny Pasquantino, if only for the reason that they feel like they would be buying low and would have an opportunity to make a positive surplus value trade. But right now, I think anything should be on the table for the Royals. Is it on the table? That remains to be seen.
We're talking with Jeff Passan here on the program, and kind of to segue off of that, or I guess to another point, when you are roughly 60 games into the season, though you're only 6.5 games out, at what point do you just come to terms with the fact that you are going to be a seller? I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff is telling the players, hey, 1 good week, 2 good weeks, we're right back into this thing. But what have you seen in the first 59 games that would indicate a good stretch or two is coming? I mean, do you wait till the end of June? Do you wait all the way into the trade deadline to see if something happens? Or is it here in the coming weeks where if you've got a good deal on the table, you might as well pull the trigger?
I think the Royals should not discount any possibilities at this point and have to be very open-minded toward, frankly, moving just about everyone on the team. I think that would be the smart thing to do. I think that would be the pragmatic thing to do. I understand not wanting to give up hope, but I think you put it well there. What have they done that suggests that they're worthy of that? What have they shown, other than for maybe a week-long stretch here or there, that this team has any chance of turning things around? I mean, maybe it goes back to the belief in starting pitching, but starting pitching has gotten you to a 22-37 record at this point, regardless of how good it's been. So that's not working, and it's not like we're 10 or 20 or 30 games into the season, guys. We're approaching the halfway mark of the season. And if at that point you don't have a decent sense of what you are, or a feeling of what you can be, and that the what they can be is the type of team that can claw back from this seemingly insurmountable lead that Cleveland has right now. I will fully acknowledge that the Cleveland Guardians are a team that has flaws, and it's not like we're looking at a team that's going to be anywhere near favored to win the World Series this year. Like, in terms of playoff teams, if the season ended today, I think the Yankees would have better odds. I think the Rays would have better odds. I think the Mariners would have better odds. And depending on who the wild cards are, I think certainly if one of them comes out of the East, probably going to have better odds. So that's the team, by the way, that the Royals are chasing. So if they're chasing this team that's probably 4th or 5th in line in the American League alone, and oh, by the way, they have to leapfrog 2 other teams in their own division and 6, 7 other teams within their own league to get there, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to chase that. It's almost like if you have bad money into something, acknowledge that there's a sunk cost instead of trying to repair it when it might just be irreparable.
Last one for you here, Jeff. Really appreciate your time. Looking ahead to the offseason, and let's say the Royals go in that direction of selling off some pieces, you tear it down a little bit. What should the focus then be for J.J. Picollo and company? Is it that was a lost year, now let's build things back up again by spending money, making some big trades, or is it more leaning into a quick reset where you're trading off some more pieces, you're trying to get younger, you're trying to get cheaper? Not that the Royals have a big payroll, but you kind of lean into that quick 1 to 2 year rebuild so that you're set up for more extended success moving forward.
And I think a lot of this will coincide also with the opening of the new stadium. And that to me is a big part of this whole deal. And frankly, the reason why the Royals shouldn't be entering into a full rebuild. And look, let's not forget what it was like couple of years ago when they went from 60-something wins to 80-something, and it was the biggest year-over-year gain in terms of wins for a postseason team. They're capable of doing that again. It just needs to be the right kind of decision-making, and perhaps there's some clearing of the decks when it comes to players who are on the team right now. Already we know Chris Bubich is likely to be gone, so if he's healthy, he's someone who I think one way or another will be traded before the August 3rd deadline this year. But in terms of just how you go about it, there are a million approaches, and I would like to believe, just for the sake of the fans here, that the Royals are not going to be, gutting this thing completely. You have one of the three best players in baseball under a perfectly team-friendly contract for at least, through the end of the decade. And it's a pretty great place to start. And with Jensen and with Caglione and with Garcia and his contract, you've got four guys there who you think to yourself, each of these guys has a chance to be a part of a championship caliber team. Everything else, that's up for grabs. And how the Royals go about that, I think, is going to indicate what quality of the front office we're dealing with here. I think they've made a lot of good moves. I think organizationally they are in a far, far better place under J.J. Piccolo than they were before, just in terms of being a modern baseball team. But having all that infrastructure in place doesn't mean anything if it's not translating into wins. And that needs to be the ultimate goal.
Jack was wrong. One more short question. You spent some time with them a week or so ago. How do you feel about watching the mighty Cavaliers of Johnson County Community College close out a remarkable season with a national championship?
I just thought it was really cool for not just the kids, but Eric Horner, the head coach, for a school that's really placed a priority. It's only got a few athletic programs, but all of them are good. Mm-hmm. And more than that, I think there's just some pride in the Kansas City metropolitan area, and there should have been. Like, this was a team that was made up almost half of local kids.
Yep.
And for them to play as big of a role as they did, whether it's Victor Crystal, who went to Bishop Miege getting the final outs, or Liam Roche, who, pitched a vital game in the World Series, a couple actually, but one particular, Lance Alexander, who, Lance Alexander was on a summer ball team with Michael Winter, who's at the University of Texas right now. And for Lance Alexander to go out there in the final game, pitch the way that he did when he wasn't, one of the headliners in the rotation. And all three of whom, by the way, Ashton Nance, Liam Roche, and Victor Crystal, all Kansas City kids. So to have this pitching staff especially that has much of a Kansas City tinge as it did, and to see them go out and finish the season as, not arguably, they are one of the best junior college teams in the history of the sport. They have so many records that they've set offensively, and to show up in Grand Junction, where each of the three previous times they'd gone 1-2 and gotten bounced, and to run roughshod through that bracket, I thought it was an incredible performance by JCCC, and I'm just glad that I got to do the story beforehand because they made me look very smart.
And not just Johnson County kids, Blue Springs South, Staley, Blue Springs, Lee Summit
all
West,
over the metro,
everywhere.
All over the metro.
You look at that roster, and it's just how many kids there are, and that's going to get more and more kids are going to go, wait a minute, I can go there now? That's the kind of season that can really alter the course of a program for years to come. How many kids now weren't thinking about going and playing there, who are really good and are like, oh, I can do this now. I can go here.
I mean, let's put it this way. Scott Sharp is an assistant general manager with the Royals. He's been around for a long time, one of the key figures in the organization.
Weekly appearance on the Border Patrol here on A10.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And his son Hayden is a really good left-handed hitter from Lee Summit West, who will be playing at Johnson County Community College next year.
Yep.
Well, Jeff, appreciate your time. You have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Pleasure's always mine, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
There he goes. That's Jeff Passan of ESPN giving you tons of coverage on the Royals, Major League Baseball, and, of course, some of the local heroes in Johnson County Community College. A little bit of an update before we hit a break. Come back with the need to know. Oklahoma has tied it up in the ninth inning.
In the fourth.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Game's crawling along here.
It started at 2. It is 5:30. More baseball to be played. Extra innings go the Yellow Jackets and the Sooners. As we've said all show long, Georgia Tech wins. They're the visitors today. They would then host Kansas next weekend for the Super Regionals. If Oklahoma walks it off at any point, they will head to Lawrence for the Super Regionals. We'll keep you updated. And we'll see if we have a winner by the time this show ends. Need to know coming up next. We continue hour number 4 of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Kurtis, Seaboldt, Kyle Collier helping this thing along. Seren Petro will be back in the chair tomorrow. We'll keep you posted on the outcome of Oklahoma and Georgia Tech if we do get a winner in the next 30 minutes. Actually, less than that. Maybe more so like 20 minutes. That game's been going on since 2. We know college baseball has some long games. KU and Arkansas was long the other day. But as you guys are very aware of now, KU will play the winner of this game. Matters whether it's in Atlanta or if it's in Lawrence beginning on Friday. We've got some audio to get to for your need to know. It was a wild day in the NFL. Myles Garrett being shipped to L.A. The Rams make a blockbuster trade. They're sending Jared Verse and multiple draft picks to the Cleveland Browns. So now a guy that had 23 sacks, the Defensive Player of the Year, is going to a defense that already added Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson in the offseason. A defense, I might add, that was top 10. Top 10 in the NFL last year to go along with the number 1 offense. Without question, will be the number 1 team in the power rankings as long as everybody stays healthy through camp, when we see that first game on the NFL slate. But Todd Monken did have a chance to speak on Myles Garrett a while back.
This was earlier today. The Browns had a
golf event,
a charity event, and he and the GM, who's named Andrew Barry, kind of discussed I guess the possibilities. At that point, Barry said there was something in the works, but that he wouldn't have a statement until something actually happened. It did, and they would eventually would post this. But this is the conversation. Had a couple of questions to the new head coach Todd Monken, before anything became official.
There's a lot of talk because it's June 1st and the contract about Myles. A lot of speculation there. Have you been told that he's going to be on the team? Do you expect him to be here when we get to the season?
Well, he's not like any other player. I mean, I'm never told who's going to be on the team, who's not going to be on the team. If that's a question, I mean, every day we evaluate the roster. Andrew evaluates the roster. Management evaluates the roster. And like I said, he's no different than any other player we've got. So I don't know how to respond to that because it's really no different today than it's been for the last however many months I've been the head coach.
Have you been assured he'll be here June 9th?
No, I wasn't assured that when I took the job. I was never assured of anything when I took the job, other than once I signed my contract and whatever my contract said, that's what I was assured. And no matter what any of us coaches sign up for, is we show up every day and we coach the guys that are in the building like we've done since we've been here. That hasn't changed.
I undersold the earliness of his statement. Barry did talk after he mentioned there was something in the works. Monken clearly either knew about it but didn't talk about it, but it certainly wasn't going to let on if there was something in the works. Sounded like he didn't know it was about to happen.
I didn't get that from him.
Reporters certainly didn't, because they're asking, do you think he'll be here when the season begins?
That would be my first question if I was coming into Cleveland, of what's the roster going to look like, but more importantly, are you looking to shop Myles Garrett this offseason? Because that's the best guy on my defense. That's the best defensive player in football. You take him away, then we're going full rebuild mode in year one. As if they already weren't doing that. Myles Garrett wouldn't have changed the fact it's a rebuild mode for them. But, man, I wonder what the last couple of hours in the Browns front office and the Browns coaching staff looked like. Because I'm sure the front office is going, hey, we kind of like what we got in return. I'm sure the coaching staff, though they're probably thrilled about Jared Verse being included in that deal, you're trying to replace 23 sacks. But you and I both agree, Kurtis, and I believe, Kyle, you do as well. I like the trade for Cleveland.
I do too. Because this was an opportunity for them to make something out of what was for them an expensive piece, but wasn't really helping them. They got maximum value out of that. He's much more valuable to the Browns in getting a first, second, and third round pick over the next 3 drafts than he was being on the team and not helping them win games.
Yeah, frankly, it had to be done, and frankly, if you ask me, it's a year or two a little late. I think you could have got a little bit more without having to pay the guy. But you felt like you had to pay your franchise player, and they went out and made him the highest paid at the time, obviously, but it had to be done.
Yeah, the Browns were in a position of, you got a unbelievable year from Myles Garrett and you won 5 games. Also, a quick update, you Kansas fans are going to be thrilled. The Oklahoma Sooners have just walked off Georgia Tech in the regional win or go home. They will head to Lawrence. Hoagland Ballpark will get games this weekend to get to the College World Series. Unbelievable.
Pay heed, all who enter, beware of the Hoag.
The Hoag. Crank. Well, I probably shouldn't say it over the air. Kyle knows what I'm talking about.
You just take the P off that sign, and take the P off that sign, carry it over to Hoagland, and there it is.
You go all the way back to our interview with Henry Greenstein earlier today, and he talked about the atmosphere of what we saw this weekend for the Lawrence Regional, Arkansas, Northeastern, Missouri State there. Put that on steroids this weekend. Lawrence is going to be experiencing something they've never experienced before. A best of 3 against a former Big 12 foe in the Oklahoma Sooners to go to Omaha for the first time since 1993.
I mean, they're 100 feet from a building that's inhabited by a team that's been to 900 Final Fours and won 4 national championships, but none of those biggest games weren't played there. You could say these are going to be the biggest games played on campus in Lawrence ever.
I mean, you can absolutely make that case.
Has there been a more important, more impactful game played by a Kansas Jayhawks team in that stadium?
Not in that stadium. No, I would say that this is on campus.
On campus,
I would say the last time you had a game with this much anticipation. Funny enough, it was probably when Oklahoma football came to town. Big noon kickoff was there, and Kansas won that game with Jason Bean. You go back further than that, probably College game day.
There was nothing at stake there.
No, it's just a huge regular season game. This is to put your team on the map nationally.
Yeah, if they win out and they go to the World Series after a win on that field, that's the most impactful game in the history of that campus.
Without question.
To me. I know baseball is a distant, third to a lot of people's minds in college sports with behind football and basketball. But neither one of those sports has ever created a game of that import at home.
No, I mean, there's been, as Henry had brought up in that interview, there had been games in Allen Fieldhouse. I can remember that Border War in 2012 was probably the biggest game in that building in a long, long time. Arizona this past year was a big game, but also you look at it from a grand scheme of things. You look back now.
Yeah.
Kansas team this year, I mean, that was a great win against Arizona. It didn't mean anything for they didn't win the Big 12.
That Mizzou game in 12 was probably the closest.
I was going to say, that
something like that.
Final game of Missouri in the Big 12, 4 versus 5, 3 versus 4, something like that.
Yeah.
This is postseason, though.
Yeah.
And you want people to care about Kansas baseball next year, not just kind of fall in love with what's happening right now. You win 2 games this weekend. You beat Oklahoma. I think that adds such an awesome element too. Georgia Tech was a bear. They had the number 1 offense in the country. I mean, they were up 2-0, and Oklahoma had to beat them twice. They scored 15 runs last night. They were down 7-3 in this game. They stormed back for 5, walk it off on a solo shot in the 10th inning. Georgia Tech players are distraught. I mean, Kansas would not have been picked by many to go into Atlanta and take 2 of 3. They probably now will be picked to win this regional and get to, or the super regional, and get to Omaha. Think about the environment this weekend will be ridiculous.
That's incredible.
I mean, you can't, if you were to tell me
what you just experienced is
nothing compared to what's going to be this weekend. Because now you've told people that weren't there this past weekend, this is to go to the College World Series. Because, there's some people that will go, oh, this is the regional, I'm new to college baseball. Oh, they have to win this to get to the super regional, and they probably won't host. I'll just wait to see what happens. Now it's this gets you to Omaha, which everybody, whether you're a college baseball fan or not, is aware of. A former Big 12 I don't think it's any more storyline than that.
Nope.
I mean, it's one thing to play Georgia Tech, and I don't believe those two have ever played each other in baseball before. That's ridiculous stuff. Okay, I do want to get to some more audio here before we hit a break and come back with the kicker to wrap up the show. NBA Finals here. We got the Spurs and the Knicks. Should be a phenomenal showdown.
Which you'll hear on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Yes, we will have the games. All of the games, yep, and we'll see who the champion will be. But Victor Wembanyama was asked what he's learned about himself this postseason.
What I learned is I can go through hurdles that I didn't know those hurdles could get so high. It's just pushing through. I found resources inside of me, relentlessness. I already knew that, but doing it at this level, I mean, this is the best basketball on the planet that's being played right now. And the crazy thing is, maybe I'm crazy for that, but I want to do that 15, 20 more times. Let's hope it doesn't become an addiction. Maybe it is already.
I hope it doesn't come an addiction, but maybe it is already. That's a great quote.
If you ever wanted to know what John Thompson, the former Georgetown coach, would sound like if he had a French accent, you just heard it.
Yep, you absolutely did.
The guy does not sound like he's 22.
No, he does not. That's the deepest voice I've ever heard.
How is that possible?
Also, one of the other greats for this Spurs team in Keldon Johnson, head coach Mitch Johnson, Keldon Johnson. There's 2 Johnsons on the team. Mitch Johnson's who we're going for here. But he was asked about the emotions Wemby showed after the Game 7 win.
Yeah, he has such a vision, in my opinion, of who he wants to be as a person and as a player. And the commitment and investment that he puts into that vision is nothing like I've ever seen before. And I think we've seen a few moments where his emotions probably, in my opinion, again, meet all the things that he's putting into for these achievements and accomplishments and milestones and goals of his. In terms of championing his cause and his journey, I thought in the first half he floated a little too much at times, and we needed him to be demonstrative. We needed him to play with strength. We needed him to bring his will more than his talent. And it's hard for these young guys who have never been in this spot. And so there is the experience thing, and I understand that they're learning on the fly what it takes. But I think the second half, we doubled down and invested on leaning into willing our plays to execution and to completion and not our talent. And when we did that appropriately, we still had enough talent when needed to make the appropriate plays.
Does anybody on that team not have a voice of a movie villain?
Seriously. I'm also a huge fan of Mitch Johnson. Man, he is a great coach, was an assistant under Pop for years.
By the way, have you seen the picture of Wemby holding the baseball?
Yes.
It is unobjectively one of the 5 funniest things you'll ever see.
Funniest and just freaky.
You just look at it and you're like, that's not a real, real baseball.
Yeah, that's just...
It's hilarious.
Yeah, seeing him throw out at first, I don't even know how you throw the ball.
Someone said, imagine the kind of knuckleball that guy could throw.
Yeah, probably a pretty damn good one here.
Good palm ball.
Let's get the Knicks side of things here because they will be going up against the San Antonio Spurs. And one of the stars of that team, in Josh Hart, he was asked about the challenge of guarding a guy like Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, it's tough in terms of the height and, shooting ability. It's, in the sense, maybe like a Kristaps, with his ability to space the court and, shoot over guys and things like that. He's a little more athletic than Kristaps is. Now maybe young Kristaps, but it's tough to use experience against, on anybody to match him.
It's tough.
That was like when I guarded who?
Kristaps. A little bit different. I see what he means. It's probably the only guy he's gone up against that is somewhat comparable because Porzingis could stretch the floor in his prime when he was healthy, but I love the beginning of that. It's tough.
Kind of tough.
It's the height of... Jeez, that's so good.
I'm 6'5". Yeah, sure, I can guard him.
Well, that's going up against Victor Wembanyama and trying to guard him. Josh Hart was also asked about the challenge of Wemby guarding him.
That's the only unanimous defensive, player of the year is guarding me, so I think... that's a good sign for me, right? You know what I mean? It means I'm a pretty good basketball player. But, man, I go into the game and I play the game the way the game needs me to play. And if that's shooting or scoring, cool. If that's rebounding, defending, cool. I don't value what I do based on other people's game plan or what the box score says.
It's one of the reasons they've been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are two teams that are so physically and mentally tough. It's why I can't wait to watch this one because neither one of them seem like, even if they're down 15 to 20 points, there's going to be this given of, not our night.
Yep.
We're not going to battle back. It seems that they're just so well coached, and there's a lot of young guys on each of these teams that buy into that, where they're not quite to that point of, I've been around long enough, sometimes it's not, you're not. Like, they're not a believer in that just yet. You could be down 30 points, and there's still a chance that you might come back in this one.
I saw this, somebody posted this, I can't think of who it was, and I hope it's not the first of many, but someone said, if Wemby wants to be the GOAT, he needs to win this one. I'm like, can we just stop? Can we just stop with the GOAT stuff?
Don't need to.
Just enjoy
a
unique, amazingly skilled, by all accounts, wonderful person and player. Just let him play, man.
Yeah, he doesn't need that
He's
pressure.
22. Stop it.
22, and the Spurs just got back into the limelight. There is no, he's got to do it now or he might not get back. Stop with all that nonsense. There will be many more opportunities in San Antonio because of how young they are, how much they can spend to get back to a point where they're in the Western Conference Finals or in the NBA Finals. But they'll get their first crack at it with Wemby against the New York Knicks. You can listen to the series all week long right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We will come back and wrap up the show with the kicker.
But first, La Feta Delicatessen, end of the hour answer. 4 players from current Big 12 schools have scored an overtime touchdown in the postseason. I asked for any one of them. The departure point is that Alan Amici, who scored the first one, was born on this date. 4 players from Big 12 schools. One of them shouldn't take you too
Brock Purdy?
long. Nope.
Ooh.
Might play for the Chiefs.
Oh, no. Who am I?
Not a traditional Big 12 school.
So it's an Oklahoma team?
Nope. Travis Kelsey,
Ah,
Cincinnati.
yes.
One did play locally, a little further out west. Darren Sproles.
Darren Sproles, yeah.
For the Chargers. Steve Smith of Utah was not a Big 12 school then. And Lamar Smith of Houston, also not a Big 12 school then.
That's a good one.
So.
That's a good one. Well, you've got a rematch of two Big 12 foes for the Super Regional, a chance to get to Omaha for the College World Series. Kansas will host again after Oklahoma upends Georgia Tech in the Atlanta Regional. Here's how it sounded about 15 minutes ago.
Dying on every pitch. Taki in the air to center. Burris going back. That ball is gone! It's gone! Dayton Taki sends Oklahoma to Super Regionals!
Yeah, if you're wondering how that's possible, if you're a host team in a regional, you have to have one game as a visitor. Georgia Tech had that beat today. And boy, did it burn them. They led 7-3. The Sooners stormed back, and they walk it off in the bottom of the 10th on a 450-foot bomb to dead center.
That's a great call.
Great call. Lots of enthusiasm.
Whenever I hear an announcer's voice crack.
Scream. Sean McDonough.
Sean McDonough does it all the time, and he's one of the best ever.
And the announcer there, just let it ride. And
just let it ride.
Go.
That was a lot of silence in Atlanta.
Tony Romo, take note.
Please.
You can't improve on the roar of the crowd.
Well, there's going to be a loud roar of a crowd in Lawrence this weekend. Jayhawks Sooners for a chance to get to the College World Series. More importantly, Soren Petro back tomorrow.